I'd like to start on off. It's 7:02, so I am going to call the meeting to order. I wanted to start on off with a couple of statements as a checklist to go over what we're doing here tonight. And I'd like to read this. As chair of the Timberlane School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. And then I'd like to do is to go on down to the next part of here is that we are utilizing Zoom for the electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following phone number, 888-475-4499, and the password is meeting ID 651-867-044. I would like to add that the public will not be speaking during these times of these meetings. We are potentially we're exploring to add those kind of features in the future, but due to the circumstances and what we are doing right now is public comment for Timberlane School Board meetings will be temporarily put on hold until we can accommodate that. There is a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-382-6541, extension 3955. And then as we go on here tonight, all votes will be a roll call vote. It's part of the meeting. And we have to also say that each member has to state their presence. Please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So I am saying that I am here by myself in this room. I do live with Ms. Kelly Main, so she is in the other room, but we will not be having any non-publics that I am aware of. So we will not need to go into non-public for anything else. With that, I'd like to go around the room. We're on the video screens to each member and state that for the following so we can meet these requirements. So I'll start in my upper left-hand corner is Sheila.
Sheila Lowe's, Sandown. I am by myself.
Okay. Kristen Savage.
Kristen Savage Plasto. I am by myself, but my children and significant other are in the home with me.
Okay. Brian Boyle.
Brian Boyle Atkinson. I am by myself. My wife is in the home.
Okay. Sarah.
Sarah Mockmer Plasto. I am in my room by myself, but my husband and my two sons are in the house.
Okay. Lee.
Lee Doobie Sandown. I am alone in my office. There are other members of my household present throughout the house.
Okay. Jennifer.
Jennifer Silva Atkinson. I am alone in my office with the rest of the house.
Okay.
Outside.
Okay. Kim.
Kim Farah Danville. I am alone in a room right now, but my daughter is in the house.
Okay. Barbara.
Barbara Kishka. I am alone in the house right now. My husband will be back from errands at some point, but I'll keep him somewhere else.
Okay. Thank you. Kyle.
Luffy, student representative, and I'm alone in the room, but my family is in the house.
Okay. And Kat Lancaster.
I'm in my office alone currently, but significant other and teenagers are here.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'd like to call through official roll call vote of opening the meeting. So if Kat, if you could take a poll of the board for praying present.
Okay, Brian Boyle.
Present.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah.
Here.
Barbara Kishka.
Present.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Sarah McAmer.
Here.
Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage.
Present.
Jennifer Silva,
Here.
Dr. Metzler.
Here.
Okay. With that, we're going to start on our agenda, which is the first part of it, which is our, well, let me back up. We did the roll call. I like to actually do our Pledge of Allegiance and our moment of silence to, thank you, Dean.
That's awesome.
It is. I'll start on off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to
to the
the
republic
Republic,
for which it stands,
stands
one
One
nation,
nation,
under God,
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 indivisible,
indivisible,
and
liberty,
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
justice for all.
Thank you, Dean, for making that happen. Our first item is the election of our chair. And I'd like to take nominations for that, but I would like to actually come out first and make one nomination. And I'd like to nominate Dr. Farah to be the chair of the Timberlane Regional School Board for the future year. Sheila?
Second.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to submit a nomination for chair? With that, I will conclude that nobody else is putting anybody else forward, and I will make we'll call the question. All those in favor? And Kat, you got to do the roll call vote.
Brian Boyle,
Aye.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McAmer,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I'm going to hand over the mic to you, Kim.
Okay, Sean. Thank you. I appreciate everybody's vote of confidence for chair. So I will move this along and seek nominations for the vice chair.
I
saw Barbara's hand first. Barbara wants to make a nomination.
I nominate Kristen Savage for vice chair.
Barbara,
will second that.
Sean seconds. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. Kat, could you take the roll call vote for Kristen Savage for vice chair?
Certainly. Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McAmer,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
I'll abstain.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Kristen Savage is now the vice chair. Moving on to the school district clerk. Sorry, I'm looking through my agenda packet. I thought we had a nomination here.
I think it would be the same person as Caitlin.
Yes.
Yes.
We have one candidate. Is any other candidates interested?
Not that I'm
I'll seek
aware
a
of.
motion to appoint Caitlin as the school district clerk.
So made.
Second.
Mr. Doobie makes it. Sheila seconds. Kat, can you do a roll call vote on this?
Brian Boyle,
Abstain.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McAmer,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the school board recording secretaries. There are two candidates. Kayla Gondaville, SAU staff member, and Kat Lancaster.
actually
Board
will-
members, in your packet, there should have been a letter of interest from the first candidate. So I'm seeking nominations for school board recording secretary.
I'd like to make the motion for Kat Lancaster.
Sean makes the motion for Kat Lancaster. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Sheila seconds.
Kim-
Sheila, question?
Yes, I do have a question. Can somebody tell me when we got this, the interest?
The letter of interest on the other candidate?
Right. Because there's no date on this.
Dr. Metzler, can you find that out? I'm not sure who would know that information.
It looks like he muted. He's going to need Dean to help him out. Oh, he was off, then he went back on.
Here we go. Kathy Belcher would know. I believe that came in. I don't have an exact date. That came in when we opened it up internally. We typically, for positions in the district, there's a 5-day window that it's posted internally before it's posted externally. So I would imagine that came in within those first 5 days. Typically, those would come to you at your next meeting when you make the recommendation to vote on who you'd like to be the recording secretary for that particular year. So you would have had, if there were 10 candidates, you would have had them tonight. You had 2. So there you go.
Thank you.
All right, there's a motion on the floor in a second. I'd like to take a roll call vote on that motion. Kat?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka.
Abstain.
What was that?
Abstain.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McAmar,
No.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Abstain.
Okay, the motion carries. Kat, congratulations. You are now the school board recording secretary. Moving on to treasurer. Sorry, I'm pulling. Kathy Beatty is seeking reappointment. Could I take a motion to reappoint Kathy Beatty?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Kristen seconds. Can we have a roll call vote?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McAmar,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Thank you to Kathy Beatty for seeking reappointment and is now the treasurer. Moving on, for the assistant treasurer, Gloria Dodge is seeking reappointment. I'd seek a nomination to reappoint Gloria Dodge.
So made.
I second.
Sean makes the motion, Barbara seconds. Kat, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sarah McAmar,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay,
Sheila
thank you.
Rose, yes.
Are we all set?
We're all set.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was looking at the agenda. The next item on the agenda is school council. I'll seek a motion to appoint Drummond and Woodsum as district legal counsel.
So made.
Sean makes it.
Second.
I'll second.
Brian seconds. Kat, could you call that, please?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah Markham,
Yes.
John O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is bonding. Seeking a recommendation, I'm actually going to do this as one big motion. Seeking a recommendation to bond the treasurer and assistant treasurer as required by statute in the Department of Revenue Administration, and also seeking a recommendation to appoint TD Bank as the district bank.
So
made.
moved.
Sheila
Second.
makes the motion. Brian seconds. Sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
watching this is like the old Hollywood squares. I'm watching my squares light up. Barbara's laughing. Okay, Kat, can you take the roll?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah Markham,
Yes.
John O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next items on the agenda are just the annual review of policy DFA regarding investment. That's to be reviewed on an annual basis per the auditors and RSAs. Also, policy EI, risk management, requires an annual review and adoption. No changes have been proposed. Are there any questions or comments regarding those two policies? They're in your agenda packets. Okay,
Nope.
if not,
I'd like to
Move
make a
on.
motion to ratify them.
no, it's just, we need to review those on an annual basis.
Okay, so it'll be a future board meeting?
I don't think we need to, there are no proposed changes, but we just need to acknowledge that we've read those and reviewed those.
Okay.
So this will serve as our annual review and adoption of those policies. I think, Sean, to be correct, we should. I'll seek a motion to renew and adopt policy DFA regarding investment and policy EI regarding risk management with no changes.
So made.
I'll second it.
Lee makes it. Sean seconds. If you could take a roll call vote, please.
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah Markham,
Yes.
John O'Neill,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the school board ethics statement. That's included in your agenda packet. If you could sign that at some point and send it back into the SAU office for filing. It should be reviewed and signed on an annual basis in accordance with board policy BCA. Moving on to item
Kim?
4. Yeah,
Is electronic signature sufficient for that?
I would say so at this time, that would be sufficient.
That would be nice.
I could get clarification on that, but either that or it could be mailed in. I would say an electronic signature would suffice. It's not a mandated requirement that it be signed. I mean, it's a policy, which we should do. So if you could sign it electronically and scan it in, we can always follow up with a real signature when we meet in person.
Okay.
Kim, if I could?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I believe the electronic signatures will be suffice. We're using them. We're using DocuSign for DRA documents. We're using electronic signatures for recertification or licensing and those. So I think that has become pretty much a standard practice in the state during these times. So I think
Okay.
that would be good.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, Jen has her hand up.
Sorry, Jen. Go ahead.
Do you want us to use the raise hand feature or just kind of wave at you?
No, I just need to pay attention. Just wave your hands around so I can see them.
I didn't know. I did get the DocuSign document from Jeff today. Is it easier to ask if he can just send that out so we can all sign it and get it back, or do you want us to sign it and scan it in?
You mean the one that was supposed to be verified in The one that got, the one that needed a verified signature, the MS-22?
I believe
Yeah.
that's correct. Yep.
Well, you should just be able to do that, and it should be a verified document. Lee, you could probably explain it a little better. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's a feature of Adobe. So when you open up that document, it's going to give you the opportunity to perform an electronic signature on it, and it works through DocuSign. So open it up; it'll be pretty evident on how it goes, what the process is.
So it's a verified electronic signature.
Yeah.
All I was asking was if we wanted Mr. Dowd to just send us that statement so that we could all just sign it that way and get it back.
Oh, I see what you're saying. The school board statement.
Yeah.
Oh, the ethics one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to come in very disjointed.
I think that's fine, though, that statement is just a policy statement. It's not a requirement for RSA. So I'm not overly worried about it getting in at any particular time. And I don't want to make any more work. So, okay, so we're down there. Okay, so number 4 on the reorg meeting is meeting dates and times. Recommending to hold school board meetings on the first and third Thursdays of the month at 7 at the superintendent's office. Waive the July meetings and the first meeting in August unless needed, and reserve the right to amend the meeting schedule as needed. Is everybody okay with a 7 o'clock meeting time?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Okay, great. All right, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the reorganization.
Kim?
What?
If I could,
Excuse me.
I have a date. So this is just for Miss Lancaster. The application came in on March 13th. So I think that's probably important for the minutes. Somebody was able to find that in HR. And the second thing, the meeting dates, and we do have something scheduled for the 2nd of April, which is this Thursday. Would it make sense to move that to April 9th?
I think it would make sense to move that to April 9th, yes.
I would like to, yeah, I agree with that. The April 9th, this sounds a sound date, but I would think that our frequency in this time, since we have a lot of things to cover, and I think things are dynamically moving very quickly, I would like to propose that we, meet on a weekly basis on Thursday evenings for the short duration. Hopefully this is going through and we can get a little back to normalcy, and then our schedule then can get back to normalcy, is at least my proposal.
Would it be possible to even meet earlier? I know that districts are meeting at like 4 and 5 in the afternoon. I just don't know what that means for everybody else's work schedule. So
It's not possible for me. I'm still working, and sometimes I'm not done till 5:30.
okay, and the
Same
chair, we need the chair. So that kills that. That's good.
Anything else before we end the reorganizational meeting?
Kristen's.
I'm sorry, Kristen. I'm sorry. I'm looking at
No,
two screens.
Just the committees. We're going to just get our list from what committees we served on. We're going to get that list and then look it over and submit that as we do.
Yes, I think we talk about that later on in the
Okay.
after the reorg meeting. Do we not?
Yes, we do in the second agenda.
Yeah, that'll be in the second agenda.
Okay.
Unless you already have them all done, typically I think the chair would ask for people's requests, and then the chair would assign. But obviously, Dr. Farry, do it however you see fit.
Well, I would like to ask if I know we have a new school district clerk, but I'm not a little unclear on some of these actions now. But I'd like to request that Mrs. Belcher send out the current list of committees and memberships so that people can then annotate what they would like to do and can see the list of members. Is that possible?
It certainly is. I think there's 2 ways we can do this. I mean, you can send me an email from the chair to the superintendent, or we can have Ms. Lancaster create a to-do list following our meetings and just get that to me and Kathy following the meetings so that we have a list of things to get done. If you have requests, Mrs. Belcher used to write those all down.
Okay.
So which way works better from Ms.
I just
Lancaster?
I'd as soon have Kat take this down while we're doing the meeting, because I don't want to have to try to take notes at the same time that I'm chairing the meeting. So Kat, on the to-do, please we need a list of current committee members sent out to the board, and ask board members to respond to me as to which committees they would like to be on.
And Kim, if I could, just decide.
Yes.
And can I call her Kat or Miss Lancaster? What are we going with?
That is great.
Okay. If you send that just, to me and to Kathy at the same time, with that to-do list after the meeting, whether we get it the next day, then we can generate the work. So a lot of times there'll be board requests on a Thursday evening, and then we typically get all that work out to people Friday or Monday, depending on what the board asks for. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. Are there any other questions in regards to the reorganization meeting? It has come to my attention, though I'm not a parliamentarian, that you were supposed to ask 3 times if there are any more nominations from the floor. Is that Dr. Metzler, is that a parliamentary rule? I know that's been done in the past.
That's how I did it when I was asked to open the meetings, only because I had gotten some advice, but I was under the impression that after I did that, I was told several times that we did not need to do that. So I think we're good. But that was just something that was advice that was provided to me.
Okay, just wanted to check. So if there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to adjourn the reorganization meeting, and then we will reopen with the special meeting. So this meeting is now adjourned. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the agendas. We are well past the time of the 7:15 start date for the special business meeting of the Timberlane Board. So I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Timberlane Board. I would also like to state that this is a special business meeting, and because this is a new meeting beyond the reorg, I'm going to state, as the former chair stated, that as chair of the Timberlane Regional School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting using Zoom for this meeting. All board members have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to listen as well, and if necessary, participate in this meeting through the Zoom meeting ID number 651-867-044, and they can also call in 888-475-4499. We have previously given notice to the public of this information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. This was provided on the Timberlane website at public.timberlane.net/SAU/TRSB. If anybody has a problem during the meeting, please call 603-382-6541, extension 3955. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. So, Kat, if you could please start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. And members, again, state your presence. Also state whether or not there's anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law.
Brian Boyle.
I am present. There was no one else in the room. My wife is in the house.
Lee Doobie.
Present. I remain alone in my office. There are other members of my household present throughout the house.
Kim Farah.
Present. There are other members of my household in the house.
Barbara Kishka.
Present. I expect other members of my house to be home at some point.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here, nobody home but me.
Markmar.
Present. I am alone in my room. I do have other family members in the house.
John O'Neill.
I am present, and I have other members of my household in here as well.
Kristen Savage.
I am present. I am currently alone, but there are other members of my household within the house.
Jennifer Silva.
I am here in my office by myself with other household members outside, and I'm going to apologize if you can all hear my dog barking because I cannot mute myself.
All right, thank you. It does not look like we have, do we have minutes here to approve? Hold on, I'm scrolling down. I do not see any minutes for approval.
We do have some though.
We should have some, but I don't see any for approval. So that will,
March 5th.
March 5th, Kim.
I don't see them in the,
Yeah.
are they beyond the executive summaries?
Yes, if you go back to the list under the agenda,
Yeah.
I believe if you come down, it says TRSB 0520, 03520.
What,
I think it's
what
2 or
page
3
are they
from
on?
the bottom.
What?
2 or 3 from the bottom.
Oh, they're near the end of the agenda packet.
Yes, they're on the front page of the agenda packet down near the bottom.
They're not in the actual packet, Kim. It's on the, it's one of the items on
It's
the
on the
list.
list.
Oh, okay, now I see it. Okay, all right. All right, so here's the draft minutes from the March 5th, 2020 meeting. Are there any, I'll take a motion to bring these to the floor. Somebody would bring these to the floor for approval?
So made.
Jen
Yes.
makes the motion. Lee, was that a
I'll
second?
second it.
No, it was not a second for me.
Sean's seconding it. So we're just bringing them to the floor for discussion. This is a March 5th, 2020 meeting minutes. You'll have to go into your into the actual file on TRSD and access those through the agenda packets. They're not part of the agenda packet that was posted earlier. Give people a few minutes to read these. Are there any, Sheila, do you have a change to the minutes?
I don't have a change, Kim, but it's come to my attention that there was a motion that was somehow on the tape of that meeting was omitted or something happened and the motion didn't end up in that meeting on the video.
Okay, and what?
So I just want to read it back into minutes, if I could.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. It was a motion made on 3-5. It was Mrs. Savage motion to direct Soloway and Hollis to work with Drummond and Whitson to provide documentation to the New Hampshire DOE regarding student hearings, seconded by Mrs. Lowe's. The motion passed 7-0-0.
Okay, and there is one change on the meeting. Mrs. Savage's name is spelled incorrectly there.
Oh, yeah. There's a D on the end. Other than that, I didn't find any problems with the minutes.
The vote is incorrect on most of those votes because that was the meeting that I left. So those 7-0, it was Brian, Lee, Kim, Sheila, Sean, and Sue. I left the meeting at one point. I don't think I voted on the food service contract or anything past that.
Okay. So you think that you left, usually Mrs. Belcher writes down when you exited at 9:09. So all votes, it looks like that's correct though, Jen. The motion at the bottom of page 3 says
Okay, yeah.
600. I think it's correct.
Yep. Okay, yep, they changed at the end. Got it.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any other changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, Kat, could you take a roll call vote?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Abstain.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McAmer,
Abstain.
John O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is renominations. I will request that the superintendent,
Dr. Farah, if we
Yep.
could, for usually in here, Mr. Duffy would give part of his statements to, update the school board on here. And when this agenda was created, I will admit that I missed him, and I apologize, Mr. Duffy. And we made sure that we got you the link to get in here and be a member of our team here. So I would like to hopefully have you present now in your normal slot.
Great. If the chair is all right with that.
and thank you, and I had meant to do it myself. Sean, thank you for letting me know.
No,
I'm
don't
just
worry
going to
about it.
step out
Teamwork.
just for, go ahead, you can, go ahead. I'm just going to step out to the other room just for a second to make sure my horses got brought in. Feel free to go ahead.
So I'd just like to say a quick congratulations on those who won re-election on the board, and congratulations to Ms. Kiska joining the board. I look forward to a positive year of development of our district and continue work towards making sure our students get the incredible Timberland education that they deserve. I wish we could begin the cycle with a little better circumstances, but Timberland is going to persevere, as I know it will, and we're going to adapt just as I know the student body will. So I thank you all for your public service to the most important aspect of our society, the future, and thank you for continuing your dedication by being around the board. And obviously there's not a whole lot to report in student events since school got canceled, but I do just want to speak on behalf of some of the students who I've been hearing a lot of anecdotal evidence about students are having difficulties without teacher contact, but hopefully we can resolve that tonight when we talk about video conferencing, allowances in the memorandum. I think we were more prepared than some other schools since we had practiced online learning blizzard bags before, and I think teachers were very well practiced in that, and they've been doing a good job. But I think sometimes an email just doesn't do it, and I think if we get this video conferencing going, then a lot of students are going to be in a better place to get the instructional material that they need to keep learning throughout the school year, no matter how long the extension is. That's all I have, and I hope you guys can take a vote yes on that video conferencing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do want to say thank you to all the staff, the technical staff that got us up and running today. I know it's been quite a struggle, and also in general, thank the staff at Timberlane. These are really extraordinary times. I've been impacted myself. So as a teacher, I can certainly relate to all the teachers that are out there in Timberlane that have all of a sudden been thrust into an online environment. So I know myself and the rest of the board members appreciate that. And I also know that this is the first meeting since the election. I do want to thank the Danville voters for their support of me, and I also want to thank the voters in general for their support of the withdrawal warrant that passed by a large margin. I do want to state that this will be the transition year for the withdrawal. I know there have been concerns about people, jobs, whatever. It is not the intent of this board, I think I can speak for the board, to really disrupt anything. We're always looking out for the best interest of the students, the district taxpayers. So we will work our best to move this forward and make this as a smooth transition as possible as we leave SAU 55 and by the end of the next year form our own SAU. So that being said, I do want to move on to renominations, and I will turn it over to the superintendent. This is an action item for the board. So Dr. Metzler, it looks like at 4:20, there was, board members, in your agenda packets, a list of renominations posted.
On 4:20?
4:20 p.m. is when I see it was posted today.
Oh, I don't.
Or sorry, 3:31 today at 4:20 p.m. Board members in your agenda packets. This is what we're looking at right now. It's the fourth item down.
Got it.
I don't, hold on.
Do you want me to do a little introductory piece?
Yes, please. Well, people are looking for it.
Great, great. Well, obviously our intention was to have this in your hands the second meeting in March. Obviously, we've had our difficulties and put together the meeting tonight, so I apologize for it. We didn't want you to have it in, well, you still have it in March. We're hoping you wouldn't get it in April. Had an opportunity to meet, and I'm going to ask Sandy Allaire to jump in just a minute. Had an opportunity to meet with all the building principals. One of the issues, and this is a statewide issue really, was for the people that were not being invited back or the people that were leaving for whatever reason. We typically would have meetings and face-to-face. I can assure you that people that were not being invited back for whatever reason, whether non-renewal or whether it was a position that was not needed, those people were notified by registered mail and have those. We hope to be able to have those meetings at some point in the near future, and certainly we'll have an opportunity to reach out. What you have in front of you is the result of meeting with building principals and program leaders to staff the entire district. And so there are additional renominations that will be coming as licenses or certifications get straightened out. Some people still had a little more work to do, so they were not people that we could bring to you to renominate yet. So those would be people you'd renominate at a later date. But this is a critical mass of people that are all in positions that are very much needed. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Sandy. She could talk a little bit more in detail about if you have specific questions about any particular schools, class sizes, any grade shifts, any position shifts that we had to make to get this renomination list to you. So if that's okay, Kim, we turn it to Sandy.
Sure. One question before you turn it over to Sandy. If there's somebody with a multi-year contract, and this would not be a teacher, obviously, and would they should be appearing on the renomination list regardless. Would not that be the case?
Not necessarily. If they would be entitled to a position in the event that they came back, that would be one of those situations that would be someone that might be renominated later. At this point, these are the positions that I feel in good faith that I can nominate you under the current circumstances or staffing needs that we have. If there are people that are under contract that will be offered a position at a later date, those are still some things that needed to be worked out, and they're not at a place where we could bring them forward this evening.
Okay. Sandy, did you want to jump in? Sandy Allaire?
Hi everyone. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the renomination list. I can say that we met with each building principal extensively to talk about their staffing and also to talk about any projected future needs based on shifting enrollment. As you may know, we had started our kindergarten and pre-K open house nights prior to our district closure of school buildings. So we are in the process of going through kindergarten registrations. And as we finalize that, we will know more about our needs for staffing for full day K, half day K, and pre-K as well. But barring those changes, the list that you see in front of you reflects our current needs based on enrollment.
Barbara?
Okay, I'm new at this. This is the first time I've been through this, so excuse me if these are stupid questions. So what's the difference between a TO continuation and a non-continuation?
So based on our collective bargaining agreement, we have teachers who, if they are in our district for up to 5 years, they are on a year-to-year contract, so they are renewed annually. After 5 years, our teachers, upon successful performance with the district, are moved to a continuing contract. So we have those two different categorizations for our staff members.
Okay, and what happens to the people with non-continuing contracts? This is basically a pink slip for those people?
No. So you will see those people who are recommended for renewal, you will see them listed as on your list. It may not say 2 continuing contracts. So if they are moving into year 6, they may be listed as 2 continuing contract. And other staff members would be listed separately if they're under 5 years. And those who are on your renomination list are those who have been recommended for continued employment with our district.
The only caveat to that is in the event that they earned continuing contract status in another district, they would not have to do 5 years. They'd only have to do 3 years with us, and they would go on a continuing contract.
Okay, so excuse me if I'm still a little dim on this. So the non-continuing contract, they still have an opportunity to work with us?
They do. They're in their first either 3 or 5 years. And so when they become professional teaching status, the old term would be like tenure. That's continuing contract status. So they get that in year 4 if they earned it in a different district prior to us hiring them, and it would take them 5 years to earn it in Timberlane if they had not earned it in a different district.
So basically non-continuing is they haven't been here 5 years yet.
Or 3 if they're in a different district. If you look to the right, I don't have the list in front of me. I have a paper copy here. There'd be an asterisk. Those are the people that earned continuing contract status in another district prior to us hiring them. Those are the only ones that would be different.
All right, thank you.
Sheila?
Dr. Metzler, can you say that one more time in regards to the people who are not being renewed? Are those registered? Did you say you already sent those registered mail?
Correct. Those went out, I believe, last week, Thursday or Friday. Okay. There was some concern statewide. We had some discussion with Concord. People were concerned about that April 15th deadline. I should say most, and Sandy could certainly, or Lucy or Mark, most of those conversations had already taken place. Some of them are because of licenses. Some of those might be certification. Some of those could be performance-based. Some of those could be we don't need the position next year because of a shift. So they're situational, but the people in their first 5 years or 3 years, if they earn professional continuing contract status in a different district, can be not brought back. They typically don't necessarily get an explanation, although we try to do a good job letting them know throughout the year. But there are a whole host of reasons. So why somebody would not be invited back, and that.
Okay, but now, what about the teachers that we are renominating and their contracts? How would that work with them?
Well, that's after tonight. Once you hopefully past this, we'd start to generate contracts, and then we're probably going to have to do something similar to getting those contracts signed electronically, because obviously we're not going to be able to do them.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, is how we're going to get this all straight with the timelines and not being able to meet with the individuals.
I think most of the superintendents, and we've been meeting 3 times a week here on these Zoom conferences with Concord, and similar concerns. Everybody's worried about that April 15th deadline. People are worried about contracts. So I think, I think Concord, in terms of from the commissioner, I think is we're working that out. But I think we're in good shape in terms of from a business perspective to get this done in time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I guess I still have a question here, and maybe Sandy, this goes to you. When I look at the list of administrators here, and you mentioned enrollment dropping, typically we've seen 2 assistant principals at Pollard and 1 principal. It looks like we're only moving forward with 1 and 1. Has the enrollment dropped at Pollard?
Let me, Kim, if it's all right, I can explain.
Sure.
In conversations with the principal at Pollard and his assistant, they felt they've had a great year in terms of, I talked to him in great detail about what his needs would be. That's Principal Blay, and he felt that that those 2 are doing a good job and don't need the additional assistant at this point. So we've shifted that position to get some help to Sean White, who's been doing all the special ed work 6 to 12. So these are the kinds of hires that we would talk to you in the spring into the early summer about a position shift, if you would. We'd like to be able to use that administrative position to help with special ed. Sean's he's done a great job, but we've pretty much gotten just about as much as we can out of one person in terms of a lot of work in grades 6 through 12. So with special ed, so that's where that position looks like in next year's organization.
Kirsten?
So I just, following that up on Pollard, because I know if Sue were sitting here and part of this, she would be very upset to hear that we're losing that administrator at Pollard that she said she worked so hard to get. I wish she were here to offer that opinion, but I guess what has changed so much at Pollard that we suddenly don't need that? I mean, I understand that, Doug Blay and James Pelletier are great and they're doing a terrific job, but I think the intent was always to have another person return there or to help them. So why, I'm a little nervous about suddenly we're just kind of removing that position where it hasn't really been talked about.
Well, let me speak to that just a bit. So the concern or the need at one point was we really looked at this. I went down and met with staff, and it was really three really clear things. It was really had to do with we needed academic leadership, curriculum leadership. We needed discipline in terms of climate, and we needed special education help. And so as we looked at that in terms of what did that building need for organization, I just believe that we were able to get that climate under control in a sense from a discipline perspective. So the curriculum leadership and the special ed leadership, they've been able to do more. So, Doug Blay had done quite a bit from the curriculum perspective in the assistance role and really has taken on quite a bit. He's doing a nice job, but he felt with him and James that they were getting that done. And Amy Daly is really doing an outstanding job with special ed. So from a district perspective, in terms of where all the needs are, our greatest need right now is really some special ed help, grades 6 through 12 to help Sean out a bit. So aside from having, obviously ideally, sure, we'd love to have 2 assistants there and the special ed help, but we're trying to work within the organization that we have, and we felt like that would work. So we can discuss that more if you'd like, but that's really, where we were right now in terms of what we were comfortable with in terms of renominations.
Jen?
So my concern is we do have somebody with a multi-year contract who was at Pollard, and I understand, I don't have the contract in front of me, but my understanding is that it's not location specific. So we're saying that person will end up at a different location, a different position, because we're eliminating an assistant principal position at Pollard?
I think, well, you are correct. We wrote the positions purposely so that they would not be location specific. So it's, it's obviously they're Timberlane administrators and they know season to season. They can get moved around, which has happened, quite a bit, which is great. We have a very versatile kind of staff. We'll have several other assistant principal openings as well. So I don't think this is about trying to force a position into a place where we may or may not need it as much. We're going to have several assistant principal openings. So I think, we have to take a look at the big picture and find out where the best fit is. We also don't know for sure that, who may or may not come back based on a whole lot of different reasons. So we'll work that out, obviously, with the board through the spring and into the early summer. Hopefully we'll have that in the next month or two. We'll have that figured out.
Barbara.
Sorry, still newbie here. There seem to be a lot of people not getting continued. Is this a normal percentage?
Barbara, can I jump in? Can
She's
you
still
look at the bottom where it says non-continuing contract?
Yeah.
So just those people have less than the 6 years.
Okay.
We're renominating them, but they're not on an automatic continuing contract, or I should say continuing contract.
If they're on this list, we're trying to keep them.
Yes, anyone on this list we're here to vote to renominate. It's confusing the way it's broken down, but continuing contract is people with some more. The 2 continuing contract is people that are at 6, so they're no longer in that bottom.
Yeah, I got that part. Dr. Metzler explained. So okay, I'm getting more comfortable. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone on this list is up for renomination. If they're not on this list, they're not.
With with one exception, I think sometimes we just look at the total number. So there are licensed staff that don't show up on a renomination list. They're rehired, but they're not people that the board has to renominate.
Okay.
If you want to know, Sandy, if you would just jump in and give a few examples of people that are licensed that we would not have on a renomination list.
You're putting me on the spot, Earl. I don't have any examples at the tip of my tongue right now.
I do. We're talking like occupational therapists.
Yeah, I was going to talk about speech and language and OTs.
Language.
Yeah.
Some of those are contracted services, and some of those are people that we hire full time.
That's right.
Those would be
Yes, that's right.
licensed staff that would not appear on a renomination list. There's not a lot, but there's some. But they're all rehired.
Okay, so just one more question on this. So if we have, oh, sorry, Sheila, I see your hands up. Let me just ask a question. So if you have somebody on a multi-year contract who is not on this renomination list, that does not mean that they do not still have a job. They're still on a multi-year contract, right?
That's correct. We just haven't determined, well, 2 things need to be determined. If and when that person could come back, is physically or mentally.
Well, I think that doesn't matter. It's not whether they're here or not here. If somebody's on a multi-year contract, we are obligated to fulfill the contract by giving them a job, right?
If there are not other factors that need to be addressed, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, then that would mean canceling the that would be like a termination of a contract.
That would be a disciplinary.
It would be a termination of a contract because the contract is a contract's a contract, right?
That's correct. And so somebody could be out on a contract and not be holding one of our positions and still be on the payroll for a whole year. We've had that in past years. Could be a medical, could be some other reason that they're under contract, but they're not actually in one of our positions. So those are things that typically we would figure out into May, June, and July before obviously school year opens.
Okay, so not being on the renomination list as an administrator does not negate the fact that you're still under contract.
That's correct. The renomination list is not the same as the contract list.
Okay, thanks. Sheila?
A couple of things. I am noticing one person off of your administration. We'll get to that later on down the road. Am I assuming that's correct?
I would imagine at some point you're going to look for, and this would be into, this is this list of renominations. This is not the entire staff.
No, I understand that, but there's a name off here because there's a resignation.
Correct.
Thank you. My other thing is, can we fix?
Is there more than one name? Are we talking about the person that'll be in the personnel report later tonight?
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Okay, so That person is not on this new list, is what I'm saying. And
Correct.
second,
Now, just if I could clarify that, we'll get to the personnel
Yeah.
report later.
right,
But that person had a conditional need to sign a contract somewhere else before, and I believe that has taken place. That's why that list came out later today with that name
Okay.
not on the list.
that's okay. And the other thing is, can you ask Mrs. Belcher to fix Mr. Paradis's district years on this list, please?
So you still have like 30
Still
years or
has
something?
29 years.
Well, Gary works hard, but
Yeah, but not 29 years worth. Not quite there yet.
yeah, we'll take it. She actually that gets done in HR. That's not done by Kathy Belcher, but we'll make sure that the people that
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you know what I'm saying, the records are cleared up here, but okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to seek a motion to approve the renomination list.
I'll make that motion to approve the 2021 renomination list.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sarah seconds. Kat, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Ryan Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes,
Sarah McNamara,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's approved. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is remote instruction. It looks like there are some action items here, so I'll turn it over to the superintendent, and I guess we're going to start with the Chromebooks.
Great. So obviously we've quite a bit of work here in terms of our remote instruction. You have quite a few. You have all the correspondence, I believe, that went to both staff, went to families. I apologize. Some of those got to you not as timely as you would have liked, and so I think we cleaned that up to make sure the board gets notified simultaneously. We're going to start with the Chromebook. So the first piece is it's about equity and equality, and it's about accessibility. So we have some issues with remote instruction, and I know Ken is working on that. He's put some quotes together. So I'm going to ask Ken Henderson to jump in and handle the Chromebook section. So Ken, if you would.
Can I interrupt? Is there a summary on this more recent than what we got before?
He put an
Doesn't look-
update, I believe, on the previous executive summary, but he can. We're right up to today, so he has some more to share about the.
Right. I'm just trying to follow along here, and some things were added late today that I didn't look at. So is there?
I think Ken could explain.
Yes, good
that.
evening. I don't know if you guys got the latest executive summary on this that had many parts to it, and the first was Chromebooks. I'm going to go over that at a high level, and you guys can, of course, ask any questions you have.
is this under remote learning?
Yes.
In the agenda packet, page 10, is that what we're looking at?
It's in the agenda packet. It's under all those things, and it says remote learning, dated today. And if you open that up, go down a couple of pages. I think it's page 3. It starts with Chromebooks.
Okay.
That's correct. Yes, there is some updates in there. We've changed things up a little bit in the past week or so. So starting from kind of the top, we're in good shape. Grades 6 through 12. We started our one-to-one Chromebook program 3 years ago, and this was the first year that we were one-to-one grades 6 through 12. So that actually timed out pretty well for us. We have a Chromebook in the hands of everyone in that grade. We have support set up, remote support for students for both just general issues and hardware replacement as well. Grades K through 5, we had some decisions to make. We are not one-to-one in those schools. We have shared Chromebook carts that are in those elementary schools. And we were looking at, as you know, there was the executive summary sent out last week that kind of proposed a one-to-one solution where we would purchase new Chromebooks that we would augment the existing Chromebooks with to bring us up to a one-to-one scenario and get those handed out. We've shifted gears in the past few days to go to a model where we're just going to augment the students that don't have devices at home. So late last week, we sent out a survey to parents, every parent in grades K through 5. And it was a voluntary survey basically asking if the student does not have a device at home for them to use, to go ahead and fill out the survey to let us know that. That survey we closed early this week. We accumulated those results per school, and we've already emailed those parents that responded to the survey that we were going to have Chromebook pickup events at their local schools. Now, what we've done in the meantime is my techs have gone into the schools and wearing masks and gloves, unassembled the Chromebook carts, and Gary Paradis's crew, the facilities department, went in and properly cleaned and disinfected those Chromebooks, put them in sealed bags. We've inventoried those Chromebooks, and this week we've already set up events, like I said, at each one of the elementary schools where parents are going to have a drive-up event. They're not getting out of their cars. They come up, a staff member also wearing a mask and gloves will retrieve a Chromebook in a bag and bring that out to them, make a note of which student gets which Chromebooks. We did communicate that we will be taking those Chromebooks back at the end of the remote learning period. So I think we have a good plan. We're trying to address the needs of students who don't have devices at home. The principals also reached out to students that maybe they knew about that were possibly struggling, that maybe didn't get the email or whatever. They just followed up with those students as well. We've reached out to them to make sure they're included in this event. So I think district-wide, we look pretty good. It's not everything happens so quickly, of course, but we're putting things together and making sure that we have devices in the hands of every kid that we can get to. We have if you guys have been to any of our websites, we have a COVID-19 information page where there's a lot of information there, a lot of resources. And one of the resources is the DOE has published a list of internet providers that are making COVID-19 accommodations. So there's a list of, like I said, area internet providers where if you don't have an internet connection or if it's a really low bandwidth one, they're running all kinds of specials right now. So we did put that on our resource page as well. So that's it in a nutshell. I think we're in pretty decent shape. We were careful at the very beginning. We didn't want to send all these Chromebooks day one home at K through 5. I mean, 2 reasons. There was reports that COVID can live outside for, like, the cruise ships was like 3 weeks or something. We weren't sure then. There was a lot of uncertainty with that. We didn't want to send it home. That'd be the worst case scenario. And also, again, we didn't have one-to-one. So who gets them, who doesn't? So we had some things to figure out.
Thanks, Ken. Sheila?
Ken, a couple of questions. What was the total number of Chromebooks that you're sending out this week? How many surveys did you get back? What's that number?
Yeah, well, it was the surveys was around 150 or so, and then I do not have a total on the amount of calls that the principals made. I want to estimate it maybe another 40, 50 kids.
All right, so we're talking about at most 250 Chromebooks had to go out?
Yeah, about in that area, sure. Yep. I mean,
Okay.
we did put the survey, when we put the survey out, we made it very clear to please consider those that are in need.
Right.
So
No, I understand that. So we've got about 250 books out there, and you feel pretty secure now saying that our K through 5 now have access to online learning? Because
yes, I mean, we did.
Reached out, correct?
Yeah, we reached out to everybody and gave them an opportunity of 3 days to reply to our survey. They let us know if there was a need. Yes. I mean, certainly going forward, we'd have to, if somebody has a problem, we have vendor relations established to drop ship Chromebooks if we had to.
Right.
So we do have some supports in place there going forward. It's not like this is the end all be all.
Okay. Now, can I ask one more question? If we have some high schoolers that are having problems with their Chromebooks,
Yeah.
I have one that half the screen is black right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've.
Do they get a hold of you, or what can we do to?
They could. Anybody can certainly call me anytime. I'm very, I point them in the right direction or help them out directly, whatever the case may be. On that COVID-19 resource page for students and parents, there is a link to a Google form for support for students that they or their parents could fill out, which kind of qualifies what the issue is. And then the local school tech will call them or email them and support them. If it's determined it's a hardware issue, again, we have some vendor relations supports in place. We can drop ship equipment to students. There's been some, I'm perfectly honest, there's some complications in that sometimes with shipping and getting equipment. We're doing our best. We're trying to establish a bunch of different vendors to have a bunch of different sources because things are, they're not great out there right now.
Well, obviously the priority is making sure that the kids have computers.
Absolutely.
Now we have the stragglers of the kids that, some of them are acting up and they didn't know quite what to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, every time I talk to anybody, the administrators know this, that we have that information page on all the websites that they can go to, and that Google form is right there, front and center for student tech support.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the Chromebooks? Oh, sorry, Barbara. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Henderson, thank you, first of all, for getting those Chromebooks together and making the best with what you have, and appreciate that very much. But I'm questioning, you're putting resources about the internet up on the internet. I'm a little worried there might be families out there that don't have access to the internet, and somehow they're going to get left behind. Have you done anything to identify that gap, perhaps?
Yeah, the principals, the administration know about the DOE resources that we can point those families to. It's a great question. I mean, those families are hard to reach sometimes. They don't get emails, I guess. I'll tell you right now, it's very, very few though that don't have like a working email address that we send to. The district is pretty well connected internet-wise.
Okay.
It's more of an issue with the devices, I would say, for those families. It's not so much like the internet connection. I would say the vast majority of our parents do have some sort of internet.
Well, that's good. Just one follow-up question though is, do we have a sufficient number of Chromebooks to keep everybody supplied through the normal number of repairs, and what's the lead time on getting new ones if we need them?
Yeah, good question. We do. I think we're well set up now that we've gone in and disassembled those carts, sterilized and cleaned those Chromebooks and bagged them, inventoried them. I think we have a good, decent stockpile. And then also the drop shipping method for other vendors. Those are mostly for parts and stuff, adapters, things of that nature. So in short, I feel confident that we'll be fine, yes.
Any other questions on the Chromebooks? I know the next thing on here says update on each building level. I've been scrolling down through this summary, the 6-page summary. Thank you for putting this together. I think did Sandy or somebody want to present this, or are we just looking to ask questions on this? Dr. Metzler?
I think the previous chair sent quite a bit of questions, so we tried to address as many of those questions in executive summary form or some sort of form so you'd have some information in front of you, so as that would help frame the questions. And so I think this is probably a good time too to take a look at what we're doing tonight, and if this is something you're comfortable with, questions come, we prepare, you have information in front of you, and we can, if that's helpful, or if there's another way to do it. But I'm with you, there's quite a bit of information there, so I don't know if you want that all presented and ask questions, or if you just want to ask questions. It's entirely up to you. I think the team's prepared to do either or. It's just a time issue, I think.
Well, I think I'm good to just ask questions. And I do want to reiterate, I know this has been challenging for, everybody, teachers maybe more so than others because of the quick shift. So, and I have heard anecdotally about people having concerns, and I just want to state that this is, it's a big transition for everybody, students and teachers. We were talking about it today in our own college about how the students are acting differently online. So I think, and Dr. Messel, you probably agree with me, I'm sure this is going to get better. As with any new thing that we start, it will only improve, and we'll adjust to this as kind of a new normal here. So I don't know if any of the staff want to jump in and just give a summary. I don't think we need to have this summary read to us, though I appreciate it. But feel free, and maybe take 3 to 5 minutes just to summarize it for the people that are listening that can't see this at each level, what's happening. And then we'll have the board members jump in with questions.
Sure. Dr. Farah, this is Sandy Allaire. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
I also have Ken Henderson is also on here. We've worked very closely with Ken in our technology department through this process. Lucy Kanotis, our director of elementary ed, is also available if anyone has questions with regard to elementary education. Mark Patterson, our secondary director, was online, but some of you may know that he's also a volunteer firefighter, and he had to leave us. He is currently on call. So I would be happy to answer any questions with regard to secondary ed. So I guess going into this, I think as Dr. Farah pointed out, this has been a very quick moving and fluid, quickly changing time that has been marked by a lot of transition. And we have had to remain very open, flexible, maintain communication at all levels, remotely of course, but try to engage in individual and team-based conversations to make sure that we are addressing all concerns and needs as they are presented to us. We have been in constant and continual communication and collaboration. We've been working very closely with the leadership of our Timberlane Teachers Association as well as our Timberlane Support Staff Union. They have been very open, very willing to collaborate with us to work together as a team. And I believe that that has been a huge piece of success through this. We've been able to meet the needs of our staff collaboratively and collectively. So that being said, I'd like to emphasize that when we first entered remote learning, our plan was designed to get us through 2 weeks. As you may remember, we as a district made the decision prior to any statewide mandate to close all district schools and to enter a 2-week period of remote learning. That was on Friday, March 13th. That Sunday, the governor issued an order to extend and close all district schools and extend us to 3 weeks. So we took 2 days to provide our staff with time to prepare their lessons. We officially began remote learning 2 weeks ago. It was Wednesday, the 18th of March. So we are now just wrapping up week 2. If you are looking at kind of the actual days, this is day 10, I believe, of remote learning. So when we entered this, we had a temporary plan designed to get us through those 2 or 3 weeks. Teachers are assigning work remotely on a weekly basis as opposed to a day-per-day correlation as we do with Blizzard bags and online learning days. So our teachers communicate their assignments weekly to students. So during week 1, that process entailed for pre-K through grade 2. Those students were not yet online and using Google Classroom for online learning days. So teachers were emailing those assignments to parent emails. And if we became aware of any parents that did not have working emails, we made arrangements at the building level to send those assignments home. For grades 3 through 12, all assignments were posted by classroom teachers through Google Classroom, which is the platform that has been in use for many years now for online learning days. It's familiar to our teachers, it's very familiar to our students and to many of our parents as well. So during that first week, those 3 days, we had a lot of feedback, ongoing feedback going on to measure how that was going. We reached out to our staff. We employed a thought exchange, which has actually now been open to all school districts nationwide as a possible platform to engage their communities and receive ongoing feedback regarding questions that districts are dealing with. So we put a thought exchange open-ended question out to our staff district-wide, and we had a tremendous level of participation. We had over 300 staff participate and send in thoughts. We had over 12,000 ratings of those thoughts. So Thought Exchange not only allows our staff to provide feedback or ask questions, but then they are able to go through all of the thoughts that have been shared and prioritize them based on the content of the thought and its level of importance to them. And then through that, it allows us to see the shared priorities of the people who responded. So that was a very effective tool. We shared the detailed results of that exchange out to all staff, and we used those and that data at a district level as our admin teams to consider future adaptations to our preliminary remote learning model. So one of the requests that came through is something that I know you'll be speaking about later tonight. It is the question around optional video conferencing. So that did come out through the results of our thought exchange. We had already engaged in some conversation with our TTA leadership team as well on what that might look like in our district. I have to say that when we first rolled out remote learning, we did this purposefully to proceed with caution. We put the privacy needs and rights of our staff, students, and families at the forefront of this planning. During this process, there are other districts across the state, across the nation, who opened up video conferencing from the get-go, really without a lot of restrictions on that. And we have, heard some pretty alarming stories that are coming through regarding breaches of privacy. And so that process, by proceeding slowly and with caution, that has allowed us to really get everything in order so that we can be sure that when we are ready to roll out video conferencing and live connectivity between our students and families, we're doing so under conditions that really attempt to maintain privacy for all parties, to operate within FERPA regulations, to ensure that we are doing so and not creating too many barriers and too many inequities. So I think you were just speaking to, across our district, the fact that many of our families may have different levels of access to technology and or to the internet. So knowing that, if we were to mandate any sort of video conferencing and live delivery of instruction, we know that we will be automatically creating barriers for many people in our community who are not able to join into those live sessions due to perhaps limited numbers of devices in a family. So we are aware of several families who have multiple children with only 1 or 2 devices to share between them. So, those children may be faced with scheduling conflicts if they were to be asked to join into live video conferences with their teachers. We also, are looking to do this as an optional program with our memorandum of understanding that I know you have before you, that you have negotiated with the TTA about, speaks to this being an optional addition to their remote delivery of instruction. So knowing that, our plan and our proposed amendment to move forward with this is that we do this, we do not mandate this for all students. So for that reason, we are looking to propose the use of optional remote video conferencing as a means to provide options for discussion, for question and answer sessions, for possibly individual or small group interactions to provide extra help, or the remote delivery of services to our students. So that is something that we are looking to adapt. Again, that was developed in close communication and collaboration with the leadership team of our TTA. We've also developed very specific guidelines for how our staff could set that up. We have developed a series of professional development opportunities. Those include links to resources that are online, as well as a very detailed PowerPoint presentation that sort of is a step-by-step setup. And we are looking to open live training sessions through Zoom for staff to be able to dial in and see for themselves how the program works and be walked through in live time how to set up a Zoom video conference and set privacy settings in such a way as to avoid at all possible costs any breaches of privacy. We have also created a permission form for parents to sign off on their students, giving them permission to participate in audio and video conferencing. We will be sending lists out to all schools and staff, if this is approved, for teachers to preview prior to setting up video conferences to make sure that all students involved do have parental permission and are aware of state law that restricts the recording of audio conferences as well. So, you know, there are other adaptations that we've made along the way. I know that that is the one that is probably at the forefront of many people's minds as we are going through remote learning. But I think, you know, we have done our best to communicate frequently and regularly with our staff to request their input and feedback and to remain flexible. So we will continue to do that throughout this. The safety and well-being of our staff and students is our top priority, will remain our top priority, but we will do everything we can to improve on our current practices as we progress further along in remote learning. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Jen?
Just looking at this document that was in our agenda packet about the remote learning, the very last page talks about optional video conferencing schedule for the middle school and high school.
Yes.
So what will happen during those scheduled times?
Yep. So I'm happy to speak to that. Thank you for asking that question. I neglected to bring that up. So one of our major concerns with the possible rollout of video conferencing was the potential for scheduling conflicts for students from the student perspective, where a student may or could possibly have 2, if not 3 or more video conferences all scheduled on the same day at the same time. So to avoid those conflicts, we are looking to use a modified 2-hour delay schedule that is readily used in both our middle school and our high schools. When I say modified, the only modification is that typically we have various lunches, as you may know. So at the high school, there are 4 different lunch periods. At the middle school, different teams have lunch at a different time. So in the middle of the day, typically on a regular 2-hour delay schedule, there are multiple lunch periods. So when I say it's a modified schedule, it's simply that we removed the variety in when the lunch break occurs and standardized that. So any classes that fall during that period will fall during the same exact time period. The way that would work is if at the high school, for example, a student has geometry on an A day in accordance with our block calendar days that are published online. And I think we've given you a screenshot there as well of what that looks like from March through June. So if they have geometry during block 1A, so that is period 1 on an A day, that class would be scheduled, the optional video conferencing rather, would be scheduled during block 1 on the delayed schedule, which would be between 9:20 and 10:20. That does not mean that all teachers who teach block 1A will be online and having an online video conference every A day from 9:20 to 10:20. Instead, what this means is that teachers have the option to schedule an online video conference. The length of time would be determined by the teacher based on, you know, the need, the purpose, but it would fall between that 1-hour time period. So again, teachers will be making their own determinations as to whether or not they choose to opt in to video conferencing. If they do, they also have the ability to design the frequency with which they use these sessions and the length of time for the sessions as well. And so they would then in turn communicate that scheduling to the students enrolled in their class. I don't know if that answers your question.
Sarah, then Barbara.
Thank you, Kim. So was reading through it, it looks like those sessions would be for like a review or a question answer session, but it would not be an instructional period for new material. Is that correct?
That's correct, Sarah. And the reason behind that, again, is that this is optional. This is an option for teachers. We are not mandating this, nor are we mandating this for all students. And again, the issue of accessibility, the availability of technology across our district, the availability of devices within families from one family to the next with multiple children at times, is a potential barrier to mandating this for all students. So for that reason, and because we are not recording these sessions, we are looking to have these conducted in live time. If we were to have teachers sharing original content, direct instruction to a small group of students and not all, we are immediately creating a barrier and preventing all students enrolled in that class from having equal access to their education at that point. So that is the reason why we are asking teachers to use these to clarify information, provide extra help, to have class discussion, but we are going to be asking them to not use these as an alternative to presenting direct instruction. That being said, I neglected to include that many of our teachers already have been using screencasting tools where they can deliver direct instruction remotely through video, through audio. They can use, PowerPoint, Google Slides. There are other platforms that can be used as well, where teachers can record themselves delivering direct instruction, new content to students. They can have their voice included in that. We are now allowing them to include themselves as well, their person. They can physically appear in these videos now as well. Some of them have used a whiteboard feature where they can be writing notes on a whiteboard and taking a video of it. Those can be recorded and posted publicly for all students to access. So it's really the live interactive sessions that we're looking to be supplemental and used as needed. As I mentioned, there may be the need for some small support groups as well, or extra help sessions as needed.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up?
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. Follow up.
Sorry. So if a student, say they have, geometry block A or, block 1 on an A day, and the teacher said a help session, and I don't know, they sleep through that time. Can the student reach out to her as a follow-up and try to connect separately? Or
yeah, absolutely. I mean, our teachers, I think, as you know, our teachers are incredibly responsive, supportive, ready to help all students. So I know in my conversations with Mr. Richmond, we talked about individual cases like the one you suggested. I am sure that if a student were in that situation, they reached out to their teacher. If that teacher happened to be teaching geometry during block 2B, I would imagine that they could invite that student, if that scheduling worked out, to say, hey, you missed this discussion session. I'm having a similar conversation tomorrow, block 2. Why don't you join us? So, there will be individual cases that arise across the board as we move forward with this. And again, we're trying to stress flexibility, but this was our, best attempt at this point to try to provide structure, avoid conflicts, and ensure that we can provide the best opportunities for all students.
Perfect, thank you.
Who is next? Jen, I think, is next.
Oh,
Barbara, sorry.
Hi. So Sarah covered most of what I wanted, but I just want to say that I'm a very visual person, and I'm hoping to see that visual schedule laid out fairly soon, so we can start trying to understand how that will work out for the different students. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure.
Jen?
The visual schedule, I think, is at the very bottom of that. It's in there, Barbara. But my question is, so what can parents and students expect as far as delivery of new content and actual instruction for new material?
So that's going to depend on a teacher by teacher, basis. As during our normally scheduled year outside of remote instruction, when we were in school, that is something that is determined by the teacher. I mean, teachers have different learning styles, they have different instructional goals and strategies that they employ to meet those goals for their students. As I mentioned, many teachers have started to use screencasting as a possible tool that they can use to provide visuals to students within that capacity. Other than that, there are other teachers who are providing podcasts, videos that they have found, PowerPoint presentations that have notes in them for students. I mean, there are a variety, but it really depends on teacher to teacher.
The reason I'm asking, Sandy, is because there's been a lot of discussion out there, and a lot of people are very concerned because there are some people saying, no, we are not going to be moving forward with new material, new content, new curriculum. We're only going to be doing enrichment only. I don't know if it's different across different districts, across different states, or, I really don't know on the grand scheme of this country what that looks like.
Sure.
So what I'm asking, what can students and parents expect as far as new content, moving the curriculum forward?
Yep.
I understand that the delivery mechanism might look different, but are you saying that our students will be moving toward the end goal as they would have as if they were sitting in the physical classroom?
Yes. However, what I would emphasize is that given this new platform, during our first 2 weeks, and I'm going to kind of jump back at this point. So, and just give the example of at the middle school and at the elementary school, but really more so at the middle school. Our first week of remote learning coincided with the beginning of trimester 3. So those first lessons that were pushed out to students, specifically at the middle school level, especially for unified arts, where those students had not met their teachers yet in a live face-to-face setting. Day 1 of remote learning was their first experience together as a community of learners with a teacher. So that being said, the first week, moving into week 2 of remote learning, I would say from pre-K through grade 8, not across the board, but was primarily designed to familiarize students with this new way of learning, to review, to reinforce what they had been working on, and to perhaps begin introducing some new content. That being said, our elementary admin team and our secondary team has been working very closely to provide examples for teachers on how to identify essential, what are their essential learning standards that they're looking at, their competencies, and to prioritize that, as opposed to, the small minutia that they may be able to include, but may not have time to do so in a remote learning platform. So yes, we absolutely are going to be looking to move forward with the curriculum to move our students ahead remotely. However, there are some best practices that have been shared from a number of organizations at the state level, and they all emphasize that idea of essential learning. So we are looking to move our students forward, but also prioritize and streamline what we are asking of all students. But this will not be an extended review period, which I think is what you were asking, Jen. That is not the goal. However, I do understand that weeks 1 and 2 may have felt that way in some pockets. And there are some reasons for that. Some of it is that we have some very young learners as well at the elementary level, and this is new for them. This is new for their parents. So the introduction of new concepts and skills may not have been a top priority at the beginning. Our teachers are also looking to maintain personal contact. We have many students and families who are struggling significantly with the lack of social interaction, of contact with their peers, of contact with their teachers. So, we're looking to move students forward but also support them at the same time. So
I thank you for that, because I do think that's reassuring. You know, and I'm not trying to focus just on high school, but having two kids in the high school, and you know, even for seniors looking to graduate and feel that they have the, you know, the content and the material that they need to move on to college, or for the ones who are in high school still to move on to the next level of their class. I think that's reassuring. Thank you.
yeah, and I would just add to that, Jen, that this, this is something that we're dealing with across the board, I think, as schools and districts, a question that we're all asking. But I would stress that as educators, this is not something that is new to teachers. I mean, I can speak from experience that I have had years where I've had one group of students, however, who were taking one course and were moving for whatever reason at a different pace from another group of students. And, teachers have to make instructional decisions at all times to meet students where they are at, to support them, to move them forward, but really support them along the way. So, we're all dealing with this now, but this is something that we commonly deal with on a regular basis.
Okay, great. Sheila. Oh, sorry, Kyle, go ahead, and then Sheila, and then I'd like to move this to the next part, which is the update on the building levels, because we still have a lot to go. Kyle, please go ahead.
Just super quick, can I have access to that schedule so I can have it visualized for me? I don't have any access to the agenda packet from what I'm aware of.
I don't know how we would do that right now, because I don't think we can share screens.
I
Is
have
it-
an option.
Dr. Metzler, is there any way to give Kyle access to the agenda packet? You generally don't have them in advance of the meeting, Kyle?
Is that okay that I'm sharing?
I think so.
I think somebody's sharing, right?
Yeah, that's me. So it would be standby.
Look at you go, Lee.
Yeah, if I can just get my screen to cooperate. And this is it right here, Kyle.
I mean, still
See that, Lee?
through there.
Yeah, it's lagging.
That's not, I'm seeing the building cleaning on my screen.
Me too.
I as well.
Same.
Huh.
Kyle, if you want to send me an email, I can forward that to you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Sheila, one quick question, and then I'd like to move on to the building updates, or, yeah.
Thank
so,
you.
Go ahead.
So we got to the middle school and we got to the high school. I want to hear about the elementary school, Sandy.
Sure. So I know Lucy Knotis, I believe, is on this call as well, and I'd like her to jump in to help out. But in speaking with Lucy and our elementary admin team, their structure is different than our middle and high schools, where they don't operate on a rotational period day in the same way that the middle and high schools do, where they change teachers, they change classrooms,
Right.
They have courses. So we decided to provide flexibility at the elementary level to classroom teachers and our unified arts teachers to develop their timeframes and schedules within a specific timeline. So we're asking them to schedule between the hours of, I believe it's 9:30 and 2:30, which aligns to the general timeline, although they're a little bit different, but based on middle and high school for the start times. But in speaking with our TTA leadership, we talked about how during this time, starting our remote learning prior to 9:30 for many families, students, parents who are also working remotely could potentially present an issue. So we're giving them a general time frame, but giving them flexibility at the same time. So I don't know if Lucy, you want to jump in and add anything?
Sure. Sheila, did you have a?
I do have specifics. I'm asking if these children are going to have in their Google Classroom, and I know this is optional, but a chance to actually look at their teacher, if their teacher is opting into this, because I'm going to be honest with you, I have access to a 5th grader here. And what I'm seeing is a week's worth of work, but it's really pretty loosey-goosey on this end. So I'm kind of curious to how this is going to change at this point for those elementary kids, because there's not a lot of structure right now for those kids. It's very goosey. It's very, you know.
Sandy, can I jump in here before you answer? I think that question, I understand what you're saying, Sheila, but the question becomes, you cannot have synchronous instruction. And Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is, if this is now an equity issue amongst the students in our district. We cannot provide synchronous instruction to some students when other students are not able to take it. You can because it then becomes, yes, an inequitable situation. So I'm not saying that teachers should just give a week's worth of work, but I know a lot of parents are upset that it's not synchronous. Maybe some districts are doing it. Maybe some districts, everybody has access to that. But we have to provide a means for everybody to have equitable access. So, but that's not to say that teachers, the students now, when we get a little later on in the agenda, on this MOU pass, that's not to say that they can't do what Sandy's saying, I use Screencast-O-Matic and show their face to their students. But I don't think we can't do, and Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong.
What I'm asking, Kim, is that right now it's, you know, a list of things, and it's pick 2 or 3 activities in this. Pick 2 or 3 math activities. Pick 2 or 3 social studies activities. It's not.
Okay, so let's put it this way. Let's, Sandy, maybe you can, if you're a parent, and if I'm a parent and I have an issue with the instruction that my student is getting, my recourse is to go to first the teacher, then the building principal. Is that correct? And one thing that I think that, and I don't think other board members would disagree with me, teachers and staff are still working essentially 5 days a week.
I understand that.
We should have a 24-hour turnaround time on response to parents.
Yeah,
and
so,
students. Is that something that, believe me, it's done at my level too. Is that an expectation if somebody emails you that you turn it around in 24 hours? I think that's vitally important right now.
Yeah, so we do not have the 24-hour, mandate on that. However, it is an expectation in our guidelines for staff that they access, respond to all email communication in a timely manner. Understanding that there may be extenuating circumstances that arise. That being said, yes, that is an expectation.
Okay.
And you were correct in saying that parents should first reach out to teachers and then to building level administration. And if they have additional questions, they're welcome to reach out to, district level, but it should always start with the teacher. Yes.
Sandy, can I just add to try to help answer Sheila's question a little bit? Hi, everyone. Lucy Canotis. We have been, as Sandy said, working into this sort of end of week 2 through the understanding that we're really delivering review and reinforcement. At this point, we now have all classroom teachers, K-5 and Unified Arts teachers, in their own Google Classrooms that we did not have prior to remote learning, because that was not the Blizzard bag model. As we move teachers to Google Classrooms, more and more teachers have been able to start showing themselves or sending some screencast of a read aloud so that students can start to receive direct instruction. And as we've moved through this week and we're preparing for potentially what could open up with video conferencing, yes, Sheila, we are working with teachers to take a look at how to increase the rigor and how to really focus on essential content and skills by integrating and trying to get at multiple subjects in activities to provide more rigorous experiences.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. I'd like to move on now to have an update, and I think this would be someone else on the federal obligations. Sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
I had that one quick question.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask Sandy, one of the big discussions right now is, as you said, the middle school or an elementary trimester 2 just ended and they're starting trimester 3. High school quarter 3 is now ending this week.
April 6th. Yep.
And they're starting quarter 4. Are we going to be staying with the traditional grading system that we've had all year, or are we talking about moving to a pass-fail system, or?
That's a great question. We have started having conversations around grading and reporting under these conditions. Right now, I can tell you that we are not looking to move to pass-fail. However, we are doing all we can to consider ways of delivering assessments with fidelity, in a way that we can ensure honesty and academic integrity, and also consider what our families and students are also going through personally at this time. So there are a lot of considerations that come into play, but currently we are not looking to move to pass-fail.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thanks. So let's move on to an update on federal obligations, IEPs, 504s. Dr. Metzler, who will be handling that.
Susan Rassico can address those issues for you.
Okay, can we unmute Susan, please? Sandy, thank you for the update and all your staff there.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
You too.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
Good evening. I actually have a couple of main key pieces to the federal and state obligations. Remote learning has really taken the state of New Hampshire to start to align with federal regulations. So the first piece for us in special education was FAPE. The state leader, as you've seen in the summary, had recommended that we reach out to families throughout the district. Everyone has met that obligation, and we're now also looking at the methods of instruction. One of the areas that we really had an edge in terms of technology, many of our more significantly disabled students had access and were using technology prior to COVID-19. The other component that we have that is still a struggle for us is evaluations, because the federal government has not changed any of those requirements, so all evaluations must be done. We do have a process set up and in place, and we continue to work on that component. There are many pieces in terms of in-district students. We seem to be moving at a better pace now and up on board. We still do have, as I had indicated in our summary, about 133 students that we're working with the families to see if we can't assist in terms of getting them up and running with their assignments. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you have at this time.
Are there any questions on that? I can appreciate how much it's going to take to get this underway at the federal level. I mean, it's just anything at that large a level is a big undertaking.
It is. I think too, Dr. Farah, to that point, we're also in our out-of-district placements, we're looking at 2 different states that don't align. You have Massachusetts, which has basically said they're in an enrichment piece. And then you have New Hampshire that's really moved with remote learning. So there are challenges there. I can tell you that we are working on a weekly basis Both at this point, both state directors of education and special ed are working together to try and remove some of the barriers, and we are making some progress. It's slow, but we're making some solid progress.
Okay, and what is the support staff? I assume that they still are being compensated at their normal rate because of the TSSU contract, and that they're providing support for students remotely somehow. Is that correct?
That's true, and I think the MOU will help us out even more. I know Sheila had asked about students having some more structure. A lot of our students really do want to see their related service providers. We've done a great job in terms of giving assignments. So in terms of meeting the requirements at this time, they are working on that. We have behaviorists that are reaching out to students as well as school counselors. And the school counselors, it's K to 12 that are working to support that. So they're getting a different, I can't say different. What they're getting is lessons that are now meeting the environment that they're in. And we are working individually with families because it's a slow process to get them up on board in terms of where they are as a family as well.
Okay, thank you. Sheila?
Hey, Susan.
Hi, Sheila.
As far as, I read your summary, by the way, it was excellent.
Thank you.
As far as the OT, the PT, for our little ones, because that's where I'm getting a lot of chatter from, as far as those services, how soon do you think we'd be able to get these things up and running? I mean, I know you were looking at other options and so forth, but do you have a timeline at all?
We actually have provided in activities, Sheila. A lot of families that we were reaching out to were actually saying that they're having enough challenge getting the academics done. Did they have to do the related service pieces? So we're asking them to take a look at the activities they're doing more to meet the home environment. So if a student is trying to develop fine motor skills, you're really working on gross motor. So if a child has a swing set, some of our OTs are working on types of activities that will help the parents. One thing that in our younger grades, I'm meeting on a weekly basis with every school in the elementary area and working with them to really look at the new environment that they're in to really work on some of those activities. We've adopted a new strategy for some of our parents that are reaching out. So in the Google Classroom forum that Lucy Canotis spoke to, we're actually asking parents to write, give us feedback back. It's called 3 pluses and a wish. 3 things that you felt went well this week, and then 1 wish for next week. And that seems to have taken off in a few of our elementary buildings and been very helpful.
Okay, because, well, I'm talking about the summary here, and it looks like our learning center is doing fantastic. And our middle school and high school is right up there, but it looks like the elementary school is just lagging a little bit, and that's why I was wondering if we had a timeline to get this back up and running. You know what I'm saying? To get those numbers up a little bit higher.
Right, and I think in fairness to the elementary schools, I will tell you I'm very proud of all of those numbers in terms of, that to be at that level is amazing during this time. But I think too, the other piece is in going into that is that there was a lag in the elementary school. Our meetings go on every day in terms of looking at the compliance piece. So that could be evaluations that are not entered yet, and if it's at the elementary, I am the responsible person for that, so I would take credit to say that's why I can tell you with confidence they'll be increasing in numbers. It's not just the staff that contribute to that compliance piece, it's myself as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah?
I just want to jump in, Susan, and just say that I'm really excited to hear about the 3 pluses and a wish. As a mom with a child on the spectrum, changing his routine and having him to try to do OT and PT at home when he did it at school, when he was in elementary school, was always a challenge because that's not where he didn't do that stuff at home. He did that stuff at school. So I'm really excited to hear that those specialists are working so closely with the parents of these students to provide them with the tools that they need to be successful and kind of think outside the box and help those students, because it's not as easy as just providing them, you know, time to do OT and time to do PT. It's helping the student kind of realize that this stuff has to happen at home now and not in their OT room or their
Yeah.
PT.
It's a great point, Sarah.
Excited
Thank
to
you.
hear.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much on that. One question before we move on, because you know, it's come to my attention more than once that other districts are out there, and Sandy, I'm sorry if you're still here, maybe we can unmute Sandy again, please. That other, what's wrong, Jen? What?
I was going to ask a question about the other services. Is it just the teachers that are going to have access to video if they want to use it, or will they have access to video as well?
I'm sorry, is that question for me or Sandy?
Yeah. When you were talking about communicating with parents and providing activities for those students to be doing, will that be like via email, or will that be will they have the option of video as well?
They will, Jen. It's really an individual basis. Some of our families like the paper pencil tasks, while others are really looking for more of a video type situation. So yes, they do. Some may be accessing it by choice, and we're really working that through with the families.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a lag on my end. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Did I answer your question though?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So one question that I forgot to ask before we move on is, I know that there are other districts doing synchronous teaching during their regular class times. And I know you've addressed this, Sandy, and it is an equity issue, but is there a way to have teachers tape what they're doing live so that students can access it at a later time? I know Screencast-O-Matic does that. I'm just throwing it out there because, you know, everybody's comparing everybody else and what they're doing. I'm not saying it's fair, but I think I think we need to address that question because we've got districts right near us doing synchronous learning.
There are, and I can't speak to what procedures and guidelines those districts put in place to maintain student privacy and staff privacy. That being said, you're right, it is an equity issue. I'm aware of some districts that are not only doing synchronous learning, but are also taking attendance. And whereas there may be issues of tech availability in some families, you know, that's certainly of concern, in my opinion. That being said, we are not currently looking to record these live sessions. I believe that we would need to put another layer of permission into that if we were to go that route. And I don't believe currently that the recording of video conferencing is addressed in the Memorandum of Understanding. So, you know, I think right now, as I stressed earlier, we opted to proceed with an abundance of caution. And I think, you know, yes, would we have liked to have been able to roll this out sooner? Sure. But I think that we are now looking back and recognizing some serious issues that are arising in other districts in other states right now around breaches of privacy, individuals accessing these remote learning environments who are not members of the classroom, you know, a whole variety of things. So we can consider that moving forward, but we would certainly have to consider another layer of permission and, right, so.
Kim, can I just ask one more question?
Sure, Sheila.
Please.
Go ahead, sure.
What was our turn-in rate for last week? Do we have an idea of what our turn-in rate was for our work?
Yeah, I don't have that data, Sheila, but we can certainly work with our teaching staff to obtain that, but I do
I'm
not
just
have that.
curious if it's like a blizzard bag, we had 80%, 85%, 90% participating.
Yeah, so when the Bureau of Education on March 12th, they issued an emergency order that allowed districts to continue into remote learning as each district sees fit. Unlike Blizzard Bag and online learning days, that removes the 80% participation requirement. So districts in our state are not required to operate under the confines of 80% participation. So it's a
And
different.
that's fine. I think it's just for
Yeah.
the curious of myself and maybe the rest of the board to see how many children that we're actually touching and actually getting the work in and
Sure.
see how we're actually doing with this whole thing.
Yep.
Kim, if I could, just quick.
Yes, yes, go ahead.
One of the, so you bring up some great points. I think one of the things I know people were really, they wanted us to jump in faster, and I think we've done this in a really measured kind of collaborative way. I can tell you, I heard from, the Concord today from our folks. There are a lot of privacy issues. There are districts that are looking for educator conduct waivers, those sorts of things. And I think our collaborative effort, though, through you and through the TTA, is really put us in a great spot moving forward. And this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I appreciate what you said earlier. We can't just, we threw this whole new thing at people real quick and expected them to be great at it. And I think we will be great at it. But, I really do appreciate the work of Sandy and Lucy and Ken and Mark and all those folks working with TTA directly to make sure that that we are prepared, that our teachers do have the equipment that they need, that we are providing the support and training if they need it, so that we can do a really good job to get to exactly where you're looking for us to get. And I do believe we will sustain our efforts longer because of what we did on the front end. I think there's going to be some passive aggressive resistance to this. There's going to be a burnout because it's not something that everybody was prepared to do. So I think we're in a really good spot, and I appreciate what you had said much earlier in the evening about this. So thanks, Kim.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. So that being said, let's move on now to probably Mr. Dowd, food service, transportation, out of district placements. Can we unmute Mr. Dowd?
The one piece, Kim, is you might want to just wrap up the out of district placements with Susan. That they look like they were categorized a little differently there.
Okay. Susan, I think you addressed that in your, Susan's muted now. Maybe we should unmute her and Mr. Dowd because he may have to also talk about this. Out of district placements, I think they were addressed in the summary. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Susan's, Sheila, question on out of district placements?
Well, what I guess I'm wondering is, obviously we're all home. So is the out of district placements working in tangent with you, Susan, for these services? How exactly is that working?
Well, there are a few challenges. I will tell you where it's working well is many of our out-of-district placements in New Hampshire had teletherapy before, so it was just a case of students weren't transported to schools. There are some medically fragile students that we are looking at closely as to how much we can provide remotely that's meaningful, and then how much we might have to look at in terms of compensatory services. We have a wide range of options from parents that are now sending information that they don't want services to parents that have secured services through independent agencies, and we're having to hold team meetings in order to support them. Philosophically, it's ongoing. Massachusetts, again, there was a divide because they had closed schools and provided enrichment, which meant that the equity piece was nobody was getting any type of service. So they are now working more closely with us, and it's thanks to the efforts at the state level with both special ed directors that now realize the level of commitment they need to have to our children as well. So there are a wide range of pieces that are being negotiated, from extended years, school year, to bringing on therapies. what it really looks like in terms of an educational plan is if students are able to effectively get their related service in a remote setting that's meaningful, those are continuing. For some of the person-to-person contact pieces, the out-of-district placements have looked at providing that in an extension that would be included in what we're already paying. What I'm working on now is an Excel spreadsheet with all of the out-of-district placements to give a financial update that Jeff and I can monitor, and that should be coming up next week. The other piece we're looking at is the CARE Act, which is the federal government providing the states with the financing, and I did give you that rough estimate of what we feel we would be getting in return. So we have many factors that we're looking at this time. It's an ongoing piece that I really feel very strongly I need to be actively working on a weekly basis with all of these out-of-district placement components.
Okay, thank you very much, Sue.
You're welcome.
Okay. So on to food services and transportation.
Very well. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Very good. So I had some general requests for updates, and obviously the updates are going to be surrounding the current environment we find ourselves in. One question relative to food service, and there were a couple, but one of them was, are we receiving state and federal aid? I did include an executive summary with some of these bullet discrete items highlighted. So we do receive aid only when we serve meals, and we receive aid on the number of meals that we serve. So for those days that we're closed, we do not receive aid or reimbursement in the form of state and federal aid. The next question is, are the employees being paid? And both the district and district food service vendor Whitson's continue to pay food service staff for their regular hours in order to maintain staff for reopening. Any questions? Any other questions on food service?
Could you repeat that one more time as far as the staff? I'm sorry?
Both our district and our food service vendor Whitson's employees continue to be paid for their regular hours during the shutdown, during the period of remote learning.
So we are still paying $95,000 a month to Whitson with no service. Am I correct?
We are paying the amount that we pay to Whitson's. We're not paying any of those costs that we would incur when we're open. So for example, we're not paying for food. We're not paying the food costs, any other operating costs that we have. Inventories aren't changing. We're just paying for those, the employees and whatever costs there are to administer those.
Is there a clause in that, not to jump around, but the transportation contract in your executive summary says that we are continuing to pay the bus companies under the terms of their contract. What is the term of the food service contract if we don't provide meals to pay those employees?
So
I don't understand why we would, is it in the contract that we have to continue to pay the Whitson employees if they are not working?
I think what we're doing is we're paying the employees to be able to maintain our staff. And remember that this came up under an initial initial 2 week, but then a 3 week shutdown. So it's important especially during this first period of shutdown to be able to maintain those employees. And when looking at the contracts are, this is a very unique situation. Let's just put it that way. And the contracts are somewhat shy to address these specifically. And that is, it's not problematic. It is the way that it is. It's a very difficult situation. We do have certain provisions in the contract. If we're the direction of the board to look one way or the other under the contract, I can certainly do that. But right now we're operating under that guidance. And certainly it's been the direction from the state that it's their intent to have us continue to maintain those employees.
So the state has provided direction as far as food service employees?
State's provided direction. Yes, the state has provided direction generally on maintaining vendors and services all around transportation. And Susan actually just mentioned the CARES Act, and there will be some funding coming in from the federal government through the state to help with some of the costs associated with this period of shutdown. Some of the additional costs from the costs we're incurring during this period. So we're weighing now and looking at how we can make up some of those expenses if possible.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what's the additional expense?
Well, the additional expense is, for example, if we have to purchase more Chromebooks, or if we have additional online learning resources that we need to acquire to be able to deploy remote learning effectively.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm just talking, I thought we were just talking food service and
No, we wouldn't.
transportation.
Yeah, we wouldn't have any additional expenses. The expenses that we have there are expenses in relation to not having offset from revenue.
Okay, so in regards to, hang on a second, Brian. Going back to food service, if on May 2nd, the governor says that we are shut down for the rest of the year, I think we need legal counsel here as to how to proceed in terms of some of these large contractual obligations. And you know, I don't want to be, I feel for these people, but at the same time, our board is responsible for managing the taxpayers' dollars. So I just think that we should be seeking, other board members chime in here, but I think we should be seeking legal counsel on some of these contracts. I know it's an unusual situation.
Kim, if I could?
Yep.
We certainly will. This was a discussion we even had over the bus contract about looking at, I know we weren't paying for what fuel would have been used. We're also looking at the contract based on, what's the profit margin? What do they need to just maintain status quo kind of thing? So that's one thing. That's the bus contract. I know we're talking food service. Food service is another thing. And I'm with you. If this becomes long term, we got to look at the fee that they charge. Perhaps that's the first place we go. I know some places have reduced the fees already in other districts as far as food service, their service fee, if you will. So we can get those contracts over to Jim O'Shaughnessy and have him start to take a look at them and see what our short and long term plan should be, if that's okay with you.
It certainly is, and I think that needs to happen sooner, as soon as possible, because, well, you just said other districts already, it sounds like they're negotiating here with some of these vendors to say, we're willing to keep paying your staff to a certain extent, but you got to work with us because you're really not even using these staff. So
we have some statewide meetings. They have the chat that's engaged, and so a lot of times questions will get thrown out, and the state's pretty much all over the place on this, from people that don't want to pay a cent to people that are paying 100%,
sure,
everywhere in between. But I know that you are correct in a sense that there are some negotiations going on about what we should be paying bus companies, what we should be paying food service, what, in terms of percentages. There is some concern about, will we lose the labor force? If we lay people off, will we lose our bus drivers? Will we lose? But those were short term and long term. There's two different ways to look at this. I'm with you. I think it's more likely than less likely that we're looking at this long term now. This is not a 2 or 3 week. Obviously, it's 6 weeks. We're talking about the rest of the year at this point, and maybe even potentially further. So I can get those contracts, or I can have Jeff can get those contracts over to Jim as early as later tonight or early tomorrow morning, and start taking a look at what our obligations are.
Okay, so, and I think the board would probably like to see an executive summary on these larger contracts where we're actually, in some sense, not having the service provided, how, for the board's perspective. Because I can tell you another issue that we're going to have. This is a cascading effect. If we continue to pay those, that means that the towns obviously will have to keep paying at the same rate. We won't have I hate to say, a surplus. That people are going to be hurting because there's so much unemployment, which means any help that the town's taxpayers can get is going to ultimately. So I think we really need to be cognizant of the fact that we have to do the best by maintaining the district, but also supporting the taxpayers in terms of the issues they're going to face.
No, you're spot on, and I think with the CARES Act, in some instances, with the extra $600 a week that they're talking about for unemployment, in some instances this may be better for us to lay people off and have them collect than not. I don't know.
Yes, I've heard that from other higher education institutions too.
Yeah, I think I had several discussions. I mean, for some people, it's a concern about retirement and benefits, and I think those are a lot of those things that we can look at, obviously, with legal to figure out what's the best way to move forward with these contracts. I think we have looked at them short term. We need to look at them long term now, and I think if I'm hearing you correctly, the executive summary that you're asking for is costs associated with services we're paying for that we're not actually receiving at this time. Does that make sense?
Correct, yes.
Got it.
So Kat, please take that down as a note or action. Thank you.
Hey, Kim, Sheila's muted. She's been trying to get a word in, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheila, you're muted, but can I let Brian go first? Because he gave up raising his hand. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, on that same topic, I'm a little surprised to hear that we're paying private vendors, because in the rest of the country, I understand why we're paying direct Timberlane employees, but in that 2.3 trillion that was passed, that'd be up to those companies to make sure that they get their employees paid. So I don't know why we'd be taking on that role with the federal government. That's at the Timberlane School District. That I'm really surprised to hear this.
Brian, I think it's a fair point, and I think that one of the other things to keep in mind here is that this situation really has been evolving, and when we go from an initial 2-week to what's leading into a 3-week, that now we're here going on till the end of April, beginning of May, wondering, is that a reasonable date? We're really moving into a different model, and that model has been evolving and changing. I think the perspective has been changing a bit, and direction from the board on this is very helpful.
Well, it's thinking that, I guess, Jeff, I look at it, it's bigger than the board. I think probably the superintendent might know. I'm guessing, I had a conversation with Kim the other day that I think the reason the governor probably does things 30 days at a time, I think he only has so much authority to look out for 2 to 30 days at a time. I think the odds of getting back to school this year, I'm not following. I don't think those are good odds. So you got to be planning long term. But I look at our teachers; they have union contracts. Our paras have union contracts. That makes perfect sense to me. The direct Timberlane employees, administrators are direct Timberlane employees. But when I look at these private vendors, in Washington D.C. they've addressed that. I mean, there's a lot of very large companies that people are legitimately getting hurt, losing their jobs, and I think the federal government's handling that. And I think it's better for them to handle. They have better resources than we do, I guess. So I think I'm glad to hear we can get something up to Drummond and Woodson, but I just think we're better off that if they're laid off, I don't think those people, they might temporarily get hurt, but from what I'm understanding, that I think you're already getting approved up to 4 months of unemployment insurance. That's already in that package. So nobody can lose money up to $100,000 a year, I think is what I heard today.
So, Brian, you're asking then also in that executive summary for an update of private vendors that we're paying that we are not getting services from?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Kim, there's another piece of that, and I don't want to put words in the commissioner's mouth, but I do know that funds be made available to districts. We're not alone in this. This is not just a Timberlane thing. How that looks and how we're able to get reimbursed for funds that we spent for services we didn't get. I think that's something Jeff, and you can work that out, figure out how that revenue is going to offset these expenses, because the commissioner said that was really some of the funds. So if we can show that we had to pay bus companies or food vendors or whatever, just even in this short period of time, I'm not talking long term, we could be even looking for some reimbursement for funds we've already expended. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Sheila, go ahead and then I'll ask.
We're not making any provisions for students that are on free and reduced lunches, am I correct? Because Whitson is basically closed?
That's correct. Our buildings are closed.
Our buildings are closed, so we're not making, there are other districts out here that are making attempts at getting these kids some food, and we've actually put the burden on our food pantries.
Mm-hmm. We had sent out a survey initially, and the response was it certainly wasn't robust. It was a handful. And it seemed that operating centrally is a burden, of course, on some people to travel down to the Plastow location. So then the question is, do we open our kitchens in each of the schools? What is the expense? I will share with you that there is some federal aid available, but we don't really qualify under any of those metrics. Some of the aid ties to summer serving programs. We don't do that. We aren't we aren't over 50% free or reduced. We aren't a targeted community by the USDA. So we really don't qualify under any of the programs that other districts may be operating under. And looking at what we are able to offer and the burden it may place on people coming to Plastow, it looked like the food pantries that we had actually had some parallel programs to what we'd be offering as well.
Okay, so do we have a number of students that are high risk for food?
In terms of
a general number of children in our district that are free and reduced lunches, or I'm trying to get a feel here, because I'm seeing all over the place, including our recently ex-school board member Sue Sherman, looking for donations. So it is concerning to me.
Well, before you answer, Jeff, let me interject here. What I think might be a good, you say you didn't get much of a response on the survey. And it may be impractical, but I think what I'd like to see is admin staff, or not the principals, but maybe some of the more secretarial support, reaching out to all these families by phone on free and reduced lunches. And I think we might have to think outside the box here. You're still paying buses without bus drivers. And I know other districts are doing it, and I know there's going to be logistics with the COVID-19. We should be looking at a way to get this food out to these people if we have to do it. Maybe it's not practical, but there are a lot of kids out there that probably need that support right now. And is that something that we've looked at, or we could look at? I think we really need to have some support here for these students. And I don't think it's fair to put it onto community food pantries. Danville doesn't have a food pantry anymore, do we, Sean? Not one that's up and running on a regular basis.
It's very limited. It's not for pantry, more it's through St. Anne's, and all that stuff. And then we do a lot of donations.
You do have a new Lions Club weekend bag like Plastow does, that send kids home with bags for food for the weekend. You do have that now. And I don't know how many are in Plastow. I believe it's in the 20s. But it just seems like we're putting some stress on our food pantries.
Sure, duly noted. Duly noted. I can follow up with the administrators in the meetings and see what we can do to maybe deploy and see what we can and how best we can understand if there are any unspoken needs in the community, or needs that we're unaware of in the community. I know just for example, I know the data is probably a little bit old, but I know that St. Anne's, I think it served 30 of their bagged breakfast lunch packages a week ago last Thursday. So to give you an idea what the total is there in the afternoon, that was 30 bags that they had provided on like a regular Thursday afternoon. So that tells you a little bit about what the demand is on the student side.
Okay, so could we take another action item and tell me if this is impractical, because I just feel that this is something that needs to be done, is to reach out telephonically to these families that are on free and reduced lunches and ensure that those kids are getting what they need. And if not, I think as a district, we need to step up and figure out a plan here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kim, should we go beyond free and reduced? Should we just basically ask everyone? Because I have to be honest with you, I think some people would qualify but don't apply for free or reduced lunch for different reasons, but may feel very differently about it now that the need has changed. So if we just ask everybody.
I'm not opposed to that. I didn't want it to be overly burdensome. I mean, you're talking about potentially calling, several thousand people here based on the number of students that you have. And I don't think you're going to get much out of surveys. People
I
are
think
just.
your school nurses, Kim, know the best of.
Sure.
Yeah,
But
no,
I-
the expenses are, we're paying 100%, so it doesn't matter whether they're free or reduced.
Right.
Anybody in our district that needs food, then we just ask, and if they need food, they tell us, and we figure it out because we're not getting reimbursed. So I don't think it really matters free and reduced as much as it would normally, right?
I guess not. I mean, but if we found that we had a lot and we got one of the kitchens up and running, because I mean, their restaurants still do take, then we should be able to get some money, correct?
No, we wouldn't have any reimbursement for it. That was the point.
So that's it. There's no more reimbursement for free and reduced lunches now?
We don't qualify because we don't meet the 50% threshold. That's really what that was the information that we got from, and Jeff could elaborate. That was the federal lunch program would not reimburse us for any food that we served.
Right, and there's also a summer serving program, a different summer serving program that we don't participate in, and in that case, there are different rules. Under the rules that we're obligated to operate under, we're serving school in school on a school day, and if we deviate outside of that, and again, there are different programs that are run that we don't participate in, and some of those programs do allow flexibility. Obviously, summer program, you're not serving lunch or breakfast in the schools. And there's been some flexibility in regard to those rules as well, that they can even, maybe serve 2 at a time, and, so you can take care of 2 days and at once to reduce the burden on people coming through in a drive up type format. There have been a number of changes that have been made, and not particularly hitting us to the point that we would be assured of revenue.
Okay. Jen?
I don't want to make this overly burdensome, but I hear your point, Kim, about reaching out to families by phone personally. I do think that is a good approach for maybe these families who might be identified as having more of a need or being more high risk. And if we just send a survey out to all families, my concern is that the survey might not reach our neediest families. So that's fine to send a survey out to all families, but if we could try and coordinate something where there's a point person or a couple people from each building that's reaching out to these families who are already on free and reduced lunch, I think that would be great.
Well, Sheila hit it. It's, your nurses, counselors, and your principals pretty much have an idea in their buildings who we should call. Because we even did that today for a different reason, but the last few days. So I think if you just make it simple for the board, if you just said, listen, find out who needs food and figure out a way to make it happen, that's an easy thing. That's easier for us, right? We'll get all caught up in the details about whether we get reimbursed or not. But if you just said, hey, this is a priority for this district, figure out who needs food and figure out a way to get it to them, that would be a clearer directive, I think.
I'm assuming you don't need a motion for that, do you?
I don't need a motion. I think unless anybody disagrees, the board, it has a consensus on that, but just being mindful that we have to operate within, state and federal guidelines when we do that to some extent. I mean, we can't just go, willy-nilly giving everybody, turkey dinners or whatever. So I'm good with that.
Yep.
No, we'll operate within a certain framework, and that's an executive summary. We can start as soon as you want us to. We could wait until next week on the 9th and bring you something to tell you what this is our plan moving forward, or we could put something in. We can survey first, get the numbers, and take a look at what we think this will cost. You tell me.
I'd like to get it going as soon as possible. So just take a look, see what it's going to cost, and then if we need to meet again, we can always. You and I can talk about how to get it moving forward if it needs to move forward sooner. If it's the consensus of the board, you can give me the authority to I don't know, whatever, approve what the superintendent puts out once everybody's seen it.
Barbara's got a question.
Barbara, then Sarah. I'm not sure if you're.
Oh, no, sorry.
You just.
So I'm all for moving this forward as fast as we can with the information and all that. But I did want to, it sounded like from Mr. Dowd that there might be some ways we could be reimbursed in different programs than we've already been in. And I would just like to make sure that we might have some way of getting reimbursed for the meals served, because we are shifting the burden to the taxpayers with paying the employees for the food and not getting reimbursed. I would like that to be part of the report of any funds we normally would have gotten that we're not getting.
No, Barbara, that's a good point. I think for me, this feels a little bit like a negotiations with Whitson's because we're already paying them. I think we should be able to figure out something here that makes sense for the district financially, but also takes care of the needs of the children and the families at the same time. And Jeff can make the numbers work somehow, some way. I think that's really where we can go. I see this being more like a takeout. So it's going to be several locations, maybe one or two, or what's convenient. I don't know. Those are the details we got to work out, but to figure something out for folks.
Well, again, we're paying the bus company too here.
Yep.
So we might be able to bring a bus online. I'm trying to make this so that it's easier on these families for, I think we should consider looking at that. I know other districts are doing that also. They're using their
Right.
buses to deliver.
One drop off in Danville, one drop off in Plastow, one drop off in Atkinson.
Well, it would almost be like takeout to a remote location. So
yeah,
maybe it all comes from one place and the bus stops at Danville Town Hall and that's where people pick up their meals, something like that.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Same idea.
Jim?
Well, Jeff, get to make that work, Jeff.
I will say I very, very, very much appreciate the board's direction and support on this. Obviously, we're getting into a very, very different model where we're going from a very short term, sort of trying to make it work to a longer term plan. And Barbara, to your point, it may make sense to see if we can participate in a program, a summer serving program, if it's going to be something that we're going to be engaging in on a longer term basis. So I'm all for that, and I appreciate the board's support.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, I was going to suggest to Dr. Metzler to reach out to the entire district and using the communication methods that we have, like Alert Now and so forth, that you can send out notices to the entire community very quickly and get them to respond back into some central location, with the information that they would like to participate in these programs.
Yeah, I see it similar to the way we reached out for the Chromebooks, and I think we also had some other things that we had to reach out to families for. So it'll include, obviously, our key people, nurses, principals, people that know the families best. And we need to do this in a way that makes sure the message gets to everybody, but also sensitive that no one's offended in the process either. So we have really good people. We'll get this done.
All right.
Okay, thanks. And anybody else? We're all set with that? Okay, thank you. Moving on then to cleaning of facilities. This is an action item. Earl, I'm not sure who's taking this. Gary Paradis probably needs to be unmuted here.
Yeah, Gary and Jeff should be involved in this discussion. So this is really a moving target. I know several board members asked me questions about the virus and what the CDC's cleaning chemicals and I'm being perfectly honest. I don't know a lot about it. I have concerns of the virus living on metal on a cruise ship for as much as 3 weeks and who goes in and cleans it and how they do it and all those sorts of things. And then we got quotes that were crazy, like $750,000 because it's some special kind of cleaning. And then we have some that are as much as $150,000. We just want to make sure that we do this the right way and we do it once. So I don't want to clean the buildings and then recontaminate them by being back in them. So this is really a good discussion. And Gary has some information, Jeff has some information, and we just look for some board consensus about how to go forward. So Gary and Jeff, if you jump in and talk about.
Wait. Before we do that, sorry, I hate to do this, but my feeling is that this discussion should be postponed till at least April 9th and maybe even further, because right now we're not going back till May 4th. So now we're already a month out.
No,
And
okay. I'm not looking to force that discussion earlier. I mean, they can talk about what we've done so far and kind of what we're doing with custodians in terms of grounds work and those sorts of things. So, some of that we can have a more detailed conversation about what we are going to do before we let people back in full time, and that's down the road. I agree with you 100%. It might even be a discussion for even later than the next meeting or two. So whatever your pleasure is, you let me
Okay,
know.
that's fine. So this is more just an update. It's not an action on spending money to clean those
No,
buildings.
no. I'm not asking for money. I think one of the things was the custodians, where we don't have masks and some things, and Gary can talk more about this. My feeling was this is a perfect opportunity. We don't have the kind of grounds crew that we wish we had. We have a great grounds crew, but this is great if we can use some of the custodians outside to do some of the work that we don't have enough people to normally get done on our own, as far as mulchings and plantings and cleaning and that sort of thing. Take care of the outside while we're waiting to get back inside. But if that's okay, Gary and Jeff can jump in now.
Okay. So let's go ahead and listen to Gary. Sheila, she her hands up. So.
Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So what I've done is we've brought the grounds crew almost immediately back. They are working, with social distancing, but they are doing tasks that they can do outside, that they almost do all the time. And we're slowly bringing back custodial staff that can handle outside grounds work. As you know, we have custodial staff that are of age that can't do the physical labor of the grounds work that we need done. So we are implementing something for every school where, as Dr. Metzl just said, raking, planting, weeding the mulch beds, pruning trees, things like that. That's what we're trying to do right now.
Okay. Sheila?
Hey, Gary, are we still on for the pack walls, seeing that we have no kids on the property?
As a matter of fact, the pack wall is underway. They did start they did start bringing in materials and whatnot last week, and they did start some demo this week. So we are well underway.
Okay, so that hasn't been halted by any of this.
No, and what we did was we looked at when that stay-at-home order came out for the state of New Hampshire. I was in contact with Triton. Myself and Jeff looked through what the stay-at-home order was, who was affected by it. Construction is essential, and Jeff and I came to the conclusion that yes, we can still go forward with this. And I was in touch with Steve Harvey, who is Triton foreman, and told them, yep, continue on, do what you're doing, and that's what they're doing.
Fantastic. I considering we were worried about the kids' safety as far as going in and out of the pack and so forth.
That was a big issue, Sheila. That was and I did meet with Tony D from the pack today. He was there as well, and he said almost the exact same thing. He goes, "This is almost a blessing in disguise." And I granted, I don't like the fact that we are doing what we're doing, staying home, but it is a very good opportunity for us to do it without the children there.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's still going. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And let me just make abundantly clear that the plan all along for that work was that all of the workers would be outside of the buildings anyway, and that still holds true. And
that is
yeah, and it's not only probably a good thing on our end not to have to worry about the safety issues, it's also a benefit to Triton where they can work and operate in an unobstructed work site. Obviously, the restrictions in the morning with their trucks coming in and moving around and all that, so I don't know if they'll be able to move through it a little bit quicker or not, but certainly it's a great opportunity, and the timing on this, if anything worked out okay, it was that out of this whole thing. So
I will say this: there may be some slight delays on product, as Steve had told me today. I met with him today. He did order the siding and whatnot a while ago, and he said that the lead time was it should be arriving this week. Now it's looking it might arrive next week. They're telling him as April 7th or 8th, I believe, is the delivery date. So we may have some issue with that, but it's not looking like it's going to be a major issue.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and I think another action here would be to take a look at our current funds that are still in the capital account for this current fiscal year. Mm-hmm. And see what we have and start to line up projects now, because potentially by the next meeting or two we will know whether or not these schools are going to be opened. And then also we do know that the budget's passed and that we are now able to come July 1st, go out and start to look for roofing for the middle school. So we need some quotes on that. So I'd like to see those, not necessarily at the next meeting, but in the next couple weeks, so that we can move forward with some of this, especially if there's outside projects that can be done when these schools are closed.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Kim. I will start to put the word out that we're going to be looking for quotes after, for potential work after July 1st.
On the roofs, but we also
Yes.
want to be looking at what
Yep.
let's use this
Yep.
as an opportunity to start thinking about projects with the current capital funds.
That is correct. Yep.
And maybe a list on what we already have done this year using the capital funds.
Yep.
Because,
I can get you that.
I'm sure you've done little projects here and there that.
Well, we did we did put the RFP out there for the boilers. That did come back in. Unfortunately, I don't have that in front of me, so I can't.
So why don't we get you a list of what we've been able to do, what we've been able to line up, what we have coming, and some of those projects, and with perhaps some funding sources for upcoming work.
Perfect.
Okay, great, thanks. So that would be what the total is in the capital for this year, what projects we've done and expended or have encumbered, and then what we have left and what you would anticipate for projects.
Correct, yeah.
Great. Okay, moving on. Now, anything else on cleaning up facilities? Okay. Ratification of the TTA MOU is next. On action items, I think all the board members have seen this. This has passed through legal from the TTA point of view and also from the Timberlane point of view. This allows, maybe the superintendent can jump in here and explain it a little bit better. It allows for certain actions that the teachers can take. So Dr. Metzler, why don't you give me a 2-minute summary for the people?
Okay, 2 minutes. This is, and I think we've established now a process of bringing any kind of memorandum of understanding, that's an MOU, or a LOU, which is a letter of understanding, whenever the work conditions are modified. And it is true that no superintendent can modify the work conditions of a collective bargaining agreement. However, it has been past practice here for many years where these type of documents have been signed by myself or the previous superintendent or the superintendent before that, working together with the TTA, which is fine. I know there's this need to feel like we need to blame somebody. There's no one to blame. It's not the board. It's not the union. It's not the administration. It's not the teachers. It's not the paras. This is a memorandum of understanding that will allow us to kind of do collaboratively what we think is in the best interest of students. It's a little bit outside of what the collective bargaining agreement would be. I can tell you that this is not the last you've heard of these in the state. You'll probably be we're in a much better place because we did it the way we did it. Some of these other places are kind of doing it after the fact, and that's created additional problems for different reasons. But I do believe that your support for this is very much appreciated, not just by the union itself or not just by the administration, but certainly obviously by the families that you that elected you, that look for your support. So our hope is, we can have a lengthy discussion or not, but our hope is that we can get this TTA MOU passed. You have another one coming from the TSSU. It's a little bit different, but the process now of getting this to the personnel committee of the board, getting some sort of blessing, and then getting it to the board at the next meeting seems to be a smooth process, that won't prohibit us from getting the work done in a timely way. So we appreciate your support. I hope that you'll unanimously ratify this tonight and we can move forward, because I know the TTA overwhelmingly supported this just several days ago.
Okay, great, thank you. So, Sheila?
Do we have a timetable for the TSSU MOU? That was a mouthful.
I believe it's on its way, if you will. So that'll get to. I don't have the actual document yet. As soon as I have it, I'll send it to Kim and Brian and Sarah, unless those members change on the personnel committee, and then we'll obviously get it to Jim O'Shaughnessy. But I don't have it yet. But I believe this document is kicking around somewhere.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion for to accept the MOU in regards to the TTA regarding video conferencing and remote learning.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Who was the second, please?
Barbara.
Barbara.
Barbara. Okay, Kat, can you take a roll call vote on that, please?
No, wait a minute, Jen has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jen, didn't see it. Go ahead.
That's okay. Just quick question. Going back to that, so that schedule that we saw in that earlier document, I'm sure there'll be a letter coming out to parents about what the change might be. Will students also get that email to them in their student email?
That's well, Sandy, we actually have communications that are ready to go. They were ready last week, as soon as we can get this passed. So people said, what's the procedure? The procedures have all been kind of wrapped up and agreed upon. So that's ready to go. Sandy, if you're still listening, is there an email that's going out to students as well?
Dean, please unmute.
Unmute Sandy, please.
Hi. Yep, I am still here. So we have staff communication prepared, ready to go that contains the guidelines and the schedule. We don't currently have a student email. However, we can easily put one together quickly to send out tomorrow as well. So
I think that would be, well, I guess speaking from my own personal experience and my own students, I think that they would appreciate that rather than just having it come from me, the parent who maybe doesn't,
sure,
know much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess our hope as well is that teachers, as they go through the professional development, familiarize themselves with the platforms, and make a decision as to, how, when, and if they will do this. They will also communicate more specific, schedules to their students as well. But we can certainly do that.
Kyle.
Okay, great. Anybody else, or can we take the?
Kyle has a question.
Sorry, who has a question?
Kyle.
Kyle, go ahead. Sorry, hard to see you. And
So
I'll be right back. I've got to plug my computer in.
one thing definitely the students would appreciate, the email, the communication. Sometimes things get lost between the parents and the students, or the students get caught up in rumors. What happens, you play a game of telephone, you get a few thousand students down and things aren't looking so clear anymore. And also a quick question, is this going into action at the beginning of next week, or is this in action as soon as you guys pass it tonight?
I can speak to that. Again, it'll be an individual tool for staff. So I think once those communications go out late tonight or early tomorrow morning, whenever Sandy and the team, I think it won't be all at once. It'll be over the next couple of days, I think, and then I think that will be kind of teacher specific as far as readiness. If that's an answer.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll just chime in because Kim walked away.
Sorry, I'm coming back. My laptop's going to die here. Go ahead, Jen.
Just to Kyle's point, and I don't know if maybe he's heard some of this. I know these are the questions coming out of my household when they, kids hear all the stories and rumors swirling around. Is the concern that they've already received their work for the week yesterday from their teachers, so they already have a week's worth of work. And I think they just are looking for some reassurances that when this rolls out, it's not going to be additional work this week on top of the work that they were already assigned on Monday.
No, let me be clear about that. This we need to do all this in good faith. There needs to be professional courtesy. I think another point that's very important, and I don't want this to get lost in this discussion. So, Ryan, Richmond, the TTA president, and we met and we talked about what the expectations would be prior to when we thought this was going to be a short shutdown. And at that time, he was advocating for video conferencing. This was well before the governor's announcement and 2 or 3 days prior to us shutting down for several days. And our discussion was a slower rollout where we'd start with AP teachers, which he's obviously one of our better AP teachers, as a model that we could build on and kind of go. So I know there's some misinformation out there. The teachers union, they wanted this right from the beginning, and we were talking about the best way to do it. So we did agree at some point that a collaborative way and rolling this out in a different kind of way would make the most sense. But I know that kind of got lost on some folks over time, and I didn't want anybody to think that that it was different than that, because that's really the way it went. They asked for this, then the survey, then the MOU came out of that, and now we are here tonight looking for your approval. So that's the time frame, and that's kind of where we are with this MOU. So I hopefully that helps people understand kind of how this went from start to finish.
No, it does. I just want to make sure that the students aren't lost in this, because they are very, very much feeling this. So that's all.
No, and what people should know, I mean, if people are listening, board members individually reaching out, yourself and other board members advocating for kids, advocating for direct instruction remotely, that has been from day one. And so, and I kept saying, be patient, we'll get there. And I'm glad we're here. But people should know that all of you were advocating for the best interests of our kids, and we all appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. So if without any further discussion, could we take a roll call vote on that, please? Kat?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes, sorry, I had my microphone muted.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kiska,
Absolutely.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McNamara,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hey, Kim, what I'd like to actually do is recommend that we make another motion to authorize the CBA negotiating team to have the authority for the board to approve these MOUs, so that we do not have to go through the exercise that we just went through.
Great idea, Sean. So Sean's making a motion to have the board give the authority to the board negotiating team for any MOUs coming forward till, let's say, the end of the academic year, maybe? We don't want to make it indefinite.
No, I would honor that to the end of this academic year.
I'll second that.
Any seconds? Any discussion?
I think it's smart. We don't want any delays or any setbacks.
No, great idea. Okay, Kat, can you do a roll call vote on that?
Brian,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kiska,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McNamara,
Yes.
Sean O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Moving on to,
Kim, can I just make a quick recommendation?
Sure, go ahead.
Kat, these things that are annual, they're really good for the reorganizational meeting, for things for them to consider. So just a note to say, perhaps address this next year at the reorganizational meeting as one of the items to grant CBA negotiating team.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Moving on to policies. This is a second read on policies.
I want to make a recommendation, motion to accept BCA/BCA-R, BDA, BDB, board officers, BDC, appointed board officials, BDD, BBBH, BDE, BDF, BDG for second read.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, another roll call vote. These take a long time. Go ahead, Kat.
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kiska,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McNamara,
Yes.
Don O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then there's one more policy JIA, student due process rights. this is a first read. Jen, did you want to speak to that?
Oh boy, this was a very long discussion with policy committee, trying to, gosh, I'm looking at this right now, find a way to alleviate some of what we felt when we were doing some hearings. I had suggested that the policy committee work to put something together that they felt would work well with policy JICD that we already had, with the rights and responsibilities handbook that was already in place, and move it forward to the board for first read, fully knowing that this probably would be a pretty big board discussion and might make its way back to policy committee. So I just didn't want the board to think that some of the concerns that the board had weren't heard or discussed at policy committee when you look at what this change is. But it did have to go through policy committee to come back through the board to have the discussion during first read. Did I sum that up okay, Lee?
Yeah, you're dead on there.
Okay, so is this recommendation on the first read of this policy at the bottom says, recommendation from legal counsel is to revoke and repeal the policy and clarify that policy GICD governs student disciplinary and due process rights. So are we looking to get rid of this policy, JIA?
No.
No.
Why
No.
does it say that at the bottom?
That was the recommendation that Jim O'Shaughnessy had made to the board as one option to have us not have two policies that conflicted. But I know the board was feeling concerned about not having this policy at all. So the attempt was made to try and keep this policy and have it align better and not be conflicting with other ones.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
I mean, if the board wishes to revoke it, that is still something we certainly could do. I feel like it's been a year since we went through this. It's only been a couple of short months.
Well, this is a first read. Let's take this as a first read if people want to approve it. And then, it's getting late and it seems like this was months ago. And then bring it back for a second read.
Actually, I was going to ask that we table it to the next meeting to give us a chance to actually read it and look at it and digest it.
Yeah.
I mean, the gist of it is, we still want students to be afforded their due process allowed to them by law.
Correct.
And we don't want the board to have to meet for every single recommendation for a suspension beyond 10 days. If the board wishes to continue to have those meetings, then I guess we could go back to what it said before, but then we have to change everything in another direction. So I guess what is the will of the board is the question.
Yeah, I think what we tried to do here was preserve the students' rights to due process, as Jen was saying, and keep the policy separate while also giving parents some clarifying language. Because didn't we have discussion, Jen, that there was reference to JIA in a lot of the student printed material?
Yes.
Okay, is everybody okay with tabling this? I mean, we're not going to be suspending students in the next month because we don't have any schools, so. Kristen?
I'm suspending students.
You can't kick them out of their own house, Kristen, sorry. Okay, let's just table. Everybody okay with tabling this? We'll bring it back next time.
Yes, I just need a chance to.
Yeah, no, I'm good. All right, so let's move on then. Kat, just please make a note that the next meeting that we're going to bring policy JAI back for a first reading.
That's next week. Do we want to do that next week, or do we want
Well,
to push it one more?
That it, maybe push it one more meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That just make a note that it needs to come back so it doesn't get lost. So the
Yes.
next thing is the DRA form status. That would be Jeff Dowd. You're still unmuted, Jeff. Can you go ahead, please?
I am unmuted, yes. So I did provide a quick update on all of those forms. And I know that there's some confusion over the inclusion of the capital reserve, which was voted. I provided some information on how that works, and that the DRA will complete an MS-22 for revised appropriations prior to setting rates. So it's a tricky area. We've gone through it. This could be the third year, I think, in a row here. We've gone through some adjustments to the budget late by DRA, but so far I've included that because it was voted in the MS-22. The MS-22 is filed with the state. However, I need to also file the signed copy. And I think this probably raises a broader issue or point for discussion. The DRA is willing to accept DocuSign, and I've sent out that document in DocuSign, through DocuSign, and I know that some members of the board have been able to view it, sign it, and move forward. And I'd like to know how that's working with this particular document, and if there are any questions on the MS-22 in general that I can assist with.
Anybody have, Sean?
Yeah, Jeff, one of the reasons I wanted to add this as an agenda item is just to see where we stood relative to the development of these documents, that because there's usually a bunch of them that are due post, election time, and just more of an update. But I was glad to see that you had some of this done. But one of the reasons why I wanted to look at the operating budget, this MS-22, is because I didn't know if anybody like in the SAU wanted to move funds around from when the budget was set and so forth. This is another time to look at it and realign in different line items and move it around with keeping the same bottom line number. So that's what I wanted to sort of ask you and Dr. Metzler in regards to any adjustments that you're looking to propose that we do before we send this document and execute it.
I don't have any adjustments. I will say that the DRA has been pretty cool, pretty clear about the fact that what was voted was what was voted, and that's what we're reporting as part of the MS-22 process. If anything needs to be changed after that, then it becomes an issue for a board transfer.
Okay. Any other questions on that? I think the signing process is very easy. If anybody has problems, should they go directly to you, Jeff? Reply to you?
Let me know. Yeah. But what I'd also like to do, Kim, if that is a good process, I know I have some signatures out there, or some reviews and signatures out there waiting. I hope that I've sent it to everyone's current email address. But I have another issue, and that is the vouchers. Obviously, we're not in person. We're not there to pass vouchers around to be signed. I know I had some accounts payable vouchers from 2 weeks ago, and I believe I received enough signatures for SAU. So thank you. I think Brian, Sean, and Kim. And I don't think I have enough signatures on those vouchers from 2 weeks ago to send even. I'm still holding checks basically from our last check run. I have a check run coming up tomorrow, and I definitely need to have some review and approval on that particular voucher, because I have a check in there for Triton for their materials. As you know, they're staging. I don't want to have them unduly held up. If this process works as it has in the MS-22 and everyone's satisfied with that, I'm more than happy to circulate the vouchers in a similar way. And it just makes, I think, a cleaner record, and hopefully make it easier for all of you as well.
I like that process. The DocuSign actually was a little easier than some of the other routes I think that we might take. So I like that process. It's very easy. As opposed to, I usually have to go through Adobe and then, pull up my electronic verified signature and add it on. So I like DocuSign.
I liked it as well, Kim.
Yeah. So if you're still lacking signatures, if you wouldn't mind, and we do need to pay our vendors, if you could tomorrow morning send out an email again with the vouchers that you're missing signatures on, or vouchers, so that we can get this done, board members, please.
Here's the thing with the voucher that went out last 2 weeks ago. No one actually signed it. I have approvals that I can attach to the back of the vouchers. It's not a clean process. I can run that voucher through that DocuSign process. tomorrow morning, and then I can run later on in the day when we have the vouchers from tomorrow's check run. I can set those up in that same manner as well.
Okay, great. Why don't we do that? That way you get that one all verified instead of the, sending it in and saying, I accept it. So if you could do that, that would be great. Board members, look up for those two documents here coming to you. Okay, anything else? And don't forget to sign the MS-22 because that needs to go in also.
Just did it.
I did too, by the way. I
Just
was
did
just
it.
looking at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got all kinds of signatures.
Yeah, you got all kinds of signatures since you mentioned it. Okay. All right, so we're done.
Well,
okay,
look at that. Look at that.
See, all you had to do is say something.
You wanted to know how it works, so I had to open it up and see. I was planning.
Me too. I was like, yeah.
Okay. So moving on to administrators report.
Great, thanks, Kim.
Earl,
In the board packets, you're going to notice executive summaries on the following: facilities, cleaning, SPED updates, remote learning, spring sports, pickup stats at schools, COVID-19 diagnosis update, updates on other obligations as requested by the school board chair, in addition to other ones provided for tonight's discussion. We are perfectly fine posting all of these somewhere if you want. It's completely up to you, Kim, and the board if you want. I think it's a lot of information for folks. I don't know what's appropriate or not appropriate for public viewing, but I think they're all good. It's all good information. So you can let me know. There's also a repository of all communications sent out by the central office or at the directive of the central office in regard to COVID-19 and the district's response. This includes a listing of all the COVID-19 preventative measures, food service updates, and remote learning. The repository of all executive summaries provided to the board via email during the remote learning period. So you tell me how much or how little. I mean, it's all good information. I think people that listen tonight probably got a lot of information. This is a lot of information people might want to look up. What would you like me to do?
Well, I think just off the top of my head, because I'm sitting here looking at all these documents, is that, somebody could make a subfolder that says COVID-19 updates or communication so that people would know where to look. But the one that strikes me that I think really needs to go out is the spring sports update, because I know how many students that's probably going to affect. But I don't think we want to overload people with posting all these other documents. The people that are really interested just need to know a place to find them. So I don't know, what do you think about doing that? Somehow putting a COVID-19 updates folder to separate it out from the general day-to-day operations of the district, and at least posting the sports update, because I know that's very important for people, a large number of people.
Kim? Kim?
Sorry, Kristen.
Angelo has been really good that every time that there is something that changes with the NHIA, he's getting it out to all the spring athletes, middle school, high school. They're getting communications right away.
Yeah,
So-
that came in today, and I wanted it in an executive summary to you because there were some adjustments made. But we do have a COVID-19 kind of button on the main, with most of the communication. So I just didn't know if there's anything there that you thought was not appropriate to send out. Because some things are for board eyes and some are for the public eyes. What's a public document, what's a private document, and I think.
I mean, I guess.
Go ahead, Kirsten, go ahead.
I would keep the executive summaries where they are. I mean, they've kind of always, they started as a board requested document to give us information, and I would keep it that way. I think from what I'm seeing, I mean, with the child in the middle school and the high school, when something has come out, I've pretty much gotten a reciprocal document or some sort of information as a parent as well. So I don't think the executive summaries necessarily need to go out to the public.
I'm fine with that. Whatever your pleasure.
Okay, so you're clear on what we want then? Jen, hold on.
No, I was just going to say, the executive summaries, I don't think you really want to put out to the public, because even some of those that we've gotten, the information has since changed. So, you don't want to confuse people. They'll still have access to them because they're in our board packet. So when the agenda gets posted with the meeting, people can see it, but I'm not sure I would put that so publicly on the front page of the district website with all the other COVID-19 updates.
Got it. So interested parties have access. The rest of the information is where it should be, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay. The final thing is we had a Sandown Central snow removal damage. There's no action needed by the board, but I wanted to let you know last week, we believe there was damage during the snow removal at Sandown Central due to the front drop-off loop. During the damage includes the top of the storm drain cover, a portion of the sidewalk, curbing, pavement, and the top of an underground storm water cistern. So the total estimate from Busby to repair is a little over $8,000, but we have a claim with Primex filed.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted you to have that information. So that's what I have for the administrator's report.
Okay.
On to the personnel report.
Yep.
Good. Okay. We have two resignations. The first is Casey Arthur. That's a person, a teacher at the Atkinson Academy. Needs to leave as early as April 3rd. You have letters in your packet. I'll be looking for a motion to accept that resignation.
Make that motion to accept the resignation of Casey Arthur as of April 3rd.
Okay, there's a motion. Second?
I'll second it.
Sean seconds. Can we take a roll call vote?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
Yes.
Sarah McAmor,
Yes.
Don O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Dr. Metzler, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What are we doing as far as for classroom?
Can I refer to Sandy? I know she had some conversations with Kathy Deotis about.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're up and running for her classroom where she's leaving.
Can you unmute Sandy? Oh, she is unmuted. Sandy?
Hi, yes, we already posted that position as anticipated, and we developed procedures for interviewing and processing remotely long-term substitutes. So I actually had a phone interview of a potential candidate last week, and we are moving ahead with that process as we speak.
Okay, but what happens from April 3rd on until we get somebody in is my question.
So I believe she's already in process at this point, Sheila.
Okay.
So we are looking to have her in place by that date.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right.
The second resignation has to do with administrator, and you know, we're in the people business, right? So you know, this is both personal and professional in many ways. We get excited for people because they have changes in their lives, and I know I'm saying more than I should, but you know, you have a team and you have great people on your team, and this is one of our best, and so it's one of those letters where you want to hand it back and say we're not accepting this, but we also need to be excited because this person's entering a different phase in her family and in her life. So you know, I all I can say is she's been nothing but outstanding, and I know many of you know she's had your kids. It's with great regret that I bring this resignation to you. It's one of our assistant principals at our high school, Heather Cronin, outstanding, and you know, we wish her well. I know new family, she's great, but it's just we need to appreciate and respect the fact that this is a move that she needs to make personally and professionally. So.
I'll make the motion to accept Heather Cronin's resignation from TRHS Assistant Principal, effective July 1st, 2020. With deep regret, I'm absolutely heartbroken over this, but I wish her the best. She's fantastic.
I'll second that.
Lee seconds. Any discussion? I must say that I'm will miss her also. She was with my daughter all the way from middle school up to high school and was a great field hockey coach, and I wish her well. So Kat, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Lee Doobie,
Yes.
Kim Farah,
Yes.
Barbara Kishka,
Yes.
Sheila Lowe's,
I hate to say it, but yes.
Sarah McAmor,
Best of luck. Yes.
John O'Neill,
Yes.
Kristen Savage,
Yes.
Jennifer Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing for my report, because it just came in. I just got a I just got the TSSU MOU that evidently they were hoping that I would have had it earlier. So I'll make sure I get that to you and to Brian and to Sarah at the conclusion of this meeting, so you'll have it and we can go from there. Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is committee reports and reports of the school board. I'm assuming there are none. But it does raise the question as to how we are going to proceed with our committees as we keep moving through this isolation or quarantining. So, Dr. Metzler, do you have any plans? Like, how is policy going to meet? How's curriculum going to meet? How are all these meetings happening through Zoom? That's what I'm doing at work, by the way. What's the plan here?
Well, that would be my hope, and I was hoping that would be discussion at this point in the meeting. So when we schedule these, whether we schedule them on, at like 6 o'clock policy before the board meeting, that we do them through these Zoom sites, so we can use Ken and use Dean, obviously, to get these set up. Once the once the committees are established, we'll go with what we have. If that works for you.
Yeah. That works. Does that work for board members, just doing it through Zoom?
Yes.
That's fine.
Works for me. Yep.
That's
And you'll take that.
that's fine. However, I'd rather not.
Barbara.
Be the same.
See you, Barb.
Hi.
All right, Barb. Sorry, Barb. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so I have an observation that, the Zoom meeting tonight is working fairly well, but the thing about not being able to mute yourself is we need to do something about that.
Well, Barbara, you may know more about this, because this was the question I asked right from the very beginning. So my understanding was, because we had callers in, that we couldn't mute and unmute ourselves because the callers would be able to mute and unmute themselves. So I know that was what Ken and Dean were looking into, because I was as frustrated as you. I'd like to be able to mute and unmute myself while we participate. So
I did recommend doing a webinar. So we have 2 classes. We have panelists who can do video and unmute themselves, and then the public who are view only. So a webinar will give that versus a meeting.
There you go. So Ken, I know Ken's still listening. Hopefully, or Dean, someone heard that, right?
We'll get this process better and better.
Okay, great. If you could give, Ken's got a thumbs up. Nice.
The other option, the other option for those of you, if you have a headset, so if you have a mute button on your headset, so I basically supersede the controls of whoever's chairing the meeting.
Interesting.
We have to all go out and get headsets now.
Send me a link for that one. That's nice. I like that.
I can get your friends and family discount on Bose.
Okay, there you go. Send them out.
Barbara, I don't think we'll have that big an issue with these school board committees, because I think they can just run like more regular Zoom conference. You won't have the public in and out, so the host can just turn people on and off. So this is just a little different because of its a school board meeting, 91A. But good points. Okay, I don't think there's any correspondence. Any other business that anyone wants to bring up? So we're looking at meeting again on the 9th. Jen?
I just would like to have a short discussion and maybe have Dr. Metzler share some of his experience. I know a lot of people in the district have been asking about COVID-19 exposures within our district. And how are we dealing with that, communicating that? What is our role in that?
Oh, that's great. I mean, Nancy Lewis-Al is here. She's prepared to respond with what we've had. We've had, and Jen's been great, because Jen and I have been communicating with what we think we hear in the community, and then what we're looking for official notification. So I've been able to investigate some things, and we were able to get some answers. But Nancy, if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about the agencies that we contacted and the advice that we received about notifications. So if you could unmute Nancy, that'd be great.
Yep. Thank you. So we first got notified in March, late March, that we did have somebody that was exposed in the district. So what we did, we just opened this up. So upon learning of the diagnosis, as well as the date of the onset of the symptoms, we contacted the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Department of Infectious Disease and Public Health and the Center for Disease Control. And we wanted to, the purpose of the calls were to report the case as a school district and to ascertain the protocols for the notification of potential exposure and the protocol for a return to work. So the information we gathered was we confirmed the diagnosis and the information about the potential exposure and provided that to the Department of Health and then we wanted to make sure that any reporting would be where that reporting would come from. And that would be from the Department of Health only due to HIPAA laws. What happens when somebody has a diagnosis of a COVID-19, the Department of Health and Human Services will conduct the investigation to see if the onset of the symptoms would, in the days before, in the days that they were in an exposed atmosphere. So if somebody was in school on, say, the 6th, but they didn't have any symptoms until the 8th, the Department of Health and Human Resources, the Health and Human Services will decide how that's reported. So they do an investigation on each and every one. If they were to notify, if they needed information from the district, they would reach out and contact us. But we would follow that protocol. They also set down guidelines for returning to work. Those change pretty quickly as we learn more and more about the virus and how long it stays in the system. So, so today we have an update, and so now it's 7 days from the onset of symptoms and 72 hours not taking any medication, including an aspirin. And you don't have to have the primary care physician notes at this time, but it may change when we go back to school. And that's it for today. Does that answer your question?
Can you repeat that last part? So 72 hours of no symptoms?
No, 7 days from onset and 72 hours, no symptoms and no medication. So you can't be taking aspirin or anything.
So 7 days from onset, that's not even a 14-day quarantine.
That's correct.
And that's what our state is recommending?
Correct. That's the CDC, yes. And that came out today.
So today they're saying no more 14-day quarantine.
That's correct. Well, quarantine was for the exposure from your onset of a COVID-19 diagnosis. It's 7 days from that.
Wow.
I know.
And more to your point, and I'm not picking on you, Nancy, and I know this isn't you or anybody else, but I am, I cannot believe that, knowing what we know about how contagious people are prior to exhibiting their first symptom, that there is no push for notification beyond when somebody's first symptomatic.
So actually, they go back 2 days and that's it. So from the onset, they'll go back 2 days and then they make a decision. That's why it's
Well,
important.
So I just want to make this statement publicly. I don't even think shocked is a big enough word that this is how the state of New Hampshire is dealing with this. I know other states are dealing with it much more aggressively than this. I've been in touch with my state rep, and I would encourage anybody else who has these kinds of concerns to also reach out and push for some changes, because I don't really think that's acceptable, but nothing that we can do about that here tonight.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
Just two quick things, if I can.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
Geared towards Dr. Metzler, and I'm not looking really for an explanation for this, but I think when this all first started, it was new and we didn't know how long it was going to last. But what I'm hearing for stories right now is that people are really starting to hit brick walls. People are getting tapped, and I think the emotion is hitting students and teachers differently, and some will be affected in all different ways. But is this something that is being discussed in the background and will be addressed, and maybe more information going out to students and teachers as to, any relief? Just an example, I know my son today he didn't even want to look at schoolwork. He just hit a point. He's been great all along, but today was just a day. So are we addressing that and talking about how to address that with teachers that do expect their students to hand something in a certain time, but if all of a sudden you do have a student that's hitting that wall, are these things that we're talking about? I don't need an explanation right now, just.
No, I can talk about this quickly. Our counseling staff, and certainly, when we talk about professional courtesy, it's not just professional courtesy for staff. It's extended to families. We gotta be really sensitive to social emotional well-being. That's why some of these districts that talked about working straight through April break. I really know our kids are going to need a break, and we'll be fine in terms of the number of days. How our school year ends is still up in the air, but I can tell you that our counselors are really chomping at the bit to be able to provide this kind of support. So, yeah, those discussions are taking place, and our staff needs that kind of social emotional support, and so do our students, and so do our parents, quite frankly. So we need to figure out ways to get that kind of help to them remotely, which is a challenge.
And then just a general comment, I just want to say congratulations to Barbara as another Plaster rep and the newest member to our board. So welcome aboard, Barbara.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Yes,
welcome.
Big shoes to fill with Sue. She's going to be missed. She did a lot of hard work, but just congratulations, Barbara. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Just one other thing, I know it came up in an email today among the board chairs, is we are going to need to have the ability to go into a non-public session at some point. So are you taking that as an action item, Dr. Metzler, to come up with a process, or?
Yeah, that was, I think, and you saw my email, I basically, I know everybody wants to feel protected and the privacy and those sorts of things, and whether it's just the board only or if it's just the board and the administrator. So we need to explore the best way. I know Barbara probably has some ideas about breakout rooms and those sorts of things. I've had several discussions, but that came up late this afternoon. So we'll have some sort of plan, hopefully for as early as our next meeting, whether it's board only or if it's board and administrators, or sending people out and asking them to come back in, that kind of thing. There needs to be some flexibility there. So I'm hoping that we'll have some sort of answer to technology. I think most people have the same concerns about privacy and being taped, I think, while you're talking about very, very sensitive private information.
Right, I agree. But unfortunately, that seems like this is going to be the only way we're going to be able to communicate here for quite a period of time. And as I think the New Hampshire School Board Association said, what is a regular meeting becomes an emergency meeting, because even regular business has to be done at some point. So that's kind of where we're at. Okay, great. Any other questions, comments?
The only thing I want to do is I want to thank Dr. Metzler for the update on the building access Tuesday, March 31st. I see that 44 people came and got their meds.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite we tried to go building by building, and hopefully if you refresh, you'll get right up to the last minute, even with the number of people that picked up instruments today. So this was a second shot for medication and instruments, and the second shot, I guess, for staff to get in there and get the rest of the materials that they needed. So no, I appreciate it. It was tricky to get that and make sure everyone
I
was
just
safe.
appreciate them being able to pick up their meds if they needed them. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, Barbara?
Just going back to the meetings and the non-public, I would like to see a protocol for how the recordings of the non-public are treated and archived and sealed and unsealed.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean. Typically,
Okay.
in non-publics, we don't record them.
Yeah, but we don't have a recording secretary.
No, you do. It's
Oh, we
Kat.
do? Okay.
It's Kat.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, then we're good then.
And you might want to make sure Kat's going to come back next week, right, Kat?
Yeah. A lot of things to do tonight.
Yeah.
All right, all set. Jen?
One other quick question. I'm sorry I didn't think to ask this sooner, but with regards to our requirements for daily assessment and daily attendance, is that being measured by student completion of assignments?
Sandy?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question, please?
With regards to daily assessments and daily attendance, are those being measured by the completion of student assignments?
So when you say daily assessments, are you, I guess I'm not sure what you mean by daily assessments.
I think that was something I was reading that was coming out of the Department of Ed about requirements for daily assessments and attendance.
That's a possibility. If that's true, I haven't seen that yet. In terms of attendance, we are not currently taking attendance in that manner because, again, we're assigning things on a weekly basis. So that right now is very much in process, and we don't have a finalized method for doing that.
What one of the things that my hope is for next Thursday, for the 9th, and Sean and I had a brief interaction today about trying to figure out a way to track some of the ways we're doing things, and this would be one of the questions we would ask about attendance and maybe assessments, also about how many people have used the live, the video recording, how many people have used it for instruction, how many people have taped. So we're trying to put together some sort of survey between now and next Thursday. Might be too quick. Maybe it's the meeting after that, but to get some sort of that data to you to see exactly what's going on a day-to-day basis in all of our classrooms. So
Do you know what I'm talking about though? I'm trying to find it right now quickly, and I don't want to hold everybody up. It's late. I can look for it.
You may be talking about formative assessments. I'm not entirely sure if that's what you are getting at with daily assessments. I think formative assessments are typically used as more informal assessments that give regular feedback to teachers on how students are doing with new learning, so that teachers can then adjust their instruction to either provide increased support or move on with new content as appropriate. So I'm not sure if that is what you had seen on the DOE website, something with regard to formative assessment.
I'll try to see if I can pull it up again. Thank you.
It's help to forward me anything you do find, if you find that,
Sure.
and we can certainly look into that. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you for everybody, Ken and everybody else who helped facilitate the meeting tonight. So I'm going to adjourn at 10:40 p.m.
Good night.
Thanks,
Thank
Kim.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good evening, everybody.
Take care.